I was telling my kids how I like snow, but I like snow at the mountains, not at home. So, but tonight we've got, first off, we need to get our minutes approved. Oh, and I want to remind you all that our meetings are recorded, so just know that, anything we say is also obviously recorded, but I would entertain a motion for approving the minutes that we had.
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Okay, perfect. There's a motion and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay, so over the last, I guess, week or so, we received some emails from the city that had some kind of sample maps to show kind of how the process worked, and I think that's what we're going to kick off tonight. We're going to kind of go through the process of just looking at what happens when you drag a line over here and over there, and kind of what happens and how it all kind of changes the numbers and whatnot. So if anyone has any questions, we can get started. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over. Go ahead.
Good evening. How are y'all?
Good.
I have up on the screen right now, but it really depends. Is there a particular map that y'all want to start from? Do you want to start from scratch and start from the actual current districts and start moving stuff around? Or do you want to take a stab at moving around A or B, or do you have any preference?
Could you kind of pull up any map and kind of just show us what happens and how moving a line changes a different grid we have?
Yeah.
Just so we make sure
like
that
an
we all
example,
know.
So you can see how
Yeah,
it moves
maybe
around and that sort of thing?
Just pull up
That sounds
the
great.
way it is now, the way it's drawn now, and just show kind of what happens if you move a line here or there, what happens to the numbers.
Sure.
Just as it's drawn.
I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the current districts.
Okay,
We'll
perfect.
start,
Yeah,
we'll start
current.
with how we are now, and then we'll go through that. Can you give me just a second? Let me close out this plan, because I did have Plan A yet.
Hey, is there, can we turn the mic on?
Yes. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of clear off the background of the map so you can actually see the districts and you can see the move a little bit, kind of takes some of the clutter off. Once we start drawing, we'll turn everything on so you can kind of get your bearings and kind of see where everything is. This is the existing plan, the current council districts as they stand now. I'm not on. So, one of the things I want to talk to you about is some of the things on the map that we're going to be watching while we draw. The first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to pull up the bottom here real quick. And I think, did we talk about this a little bit last time? We talked about the matrix down there and how the numbers will change as we move stuff around. And then up here in the top is where we'll watch the overall deviation of the plan as we move stuff around. And the yellow box here will tell you what districts are making that deviation, what two districts are contributing to the overall deviation of the plan. So to get started, the first thing we're going to do is I've got the census blocks up. Those are the green lines that you kind of see going through all of this. Hello, Bob. One of the things that I do want to turn off is I'm going to go ahead and turn off these kind of the yellow lines that you see kind of running through here. Those are the voting tabulation districts, and they are too big for us to move those as a piece of geography to move those around. It's for the city, they are way too large. We need the smaller block building areas in order to adjust the plan. Okay, all right, so if we're gonna start off here and we're gonna start looking at some area that we wanna move, say somebody says, well, we're gonna, let's add some territory to let's say that's in territory to District 2. What we do is we set the district over here to where we're gonna go. This is the territory, I'm always gonna highlight the district that we're adding population to. And so we're gonna do number 2 here. And you'll see me go in and, actually not that one, because that is 2. We'll take some of the bigger blocks here. And as we're going, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit closer. And so we're gonna take these 2 blocks here, and we're gonna look at the population. We'll always show you up here in this bottom. If you go over to the left, at the very bottom of that blue box, it tells you how much population I have selected in yellow. So while we're gathering up stuff to move around, it'll give you an idea of how much population we're moving from district to district. And the count will tell you how many blocks I have selected. So in this instance, we've got 2 blocks selected. It's about 438 people, and we're gonna assign that to District 2. And if you'll look down here, the District 2 row in the column is kind of a blue. It's kind of highlighted blue all the way across. That tells you that's the district. Whatever district I select to move population to, that district's gonna highlight down in the matrix, and you're gonna watch those numbers change. And if you'll look up here, you can see that the deviation increased. You know, we didn't make a change that helped the plan any. So if we don't like that change and you say, oh, I don't really want to move that area, that's a poor choice to put in District 2, then basically we have an undo key and we can back ourselves back out. So we can go forward and back out and undo and select and unselect any kind of territory in combination of territory. If there's extra data that you want to look at, say you want to overlay our incumbents, I can overlay those. We have a layer manager here that has a lot of the layers saved for Farmers Branch. And I've got the incumbents. And let me zoom out a little bit so you can see them all. Those are going to be the red dots that we have up here. I'll make them a little bit bigger. So this is one way we can kind of keep track of everybody while we're drawing, is we've got the dots up there. The other thing that we can do is, I do have a neighborhood file. I actually have 2. I have a subdivision file, which is a more granular file that really kind of tells you where every parcel in the city, what it belongs to, what the name of it is, and that sort of thing. And then I have a more generalized data set. This one was built off a map that you have on the website. It is, like I said, it's very generalized neighborhood areas. It does not necessarily mean that is the exact area of the neighborhood, but it kind of gets us moving around the city if there's a particular area that you want to work on.
Can you show those to us just so we see what they look like right now?
Sure. And let me get some different colors on here for you. There we go. And zoom in a little bit so you can kind of, we can pan around if you want to look. Okay, so this West Brookhaven, Oak Brook, East Brookhaven, Dutch Village, they're generalized. You may know in your heart that I've got too much territory or not enough, but like I said, these are generalized off a map. One thing to note on the subdivisions while we're working through some of these areas and neighborhoods is typically the neighborhoods and the subdivisions, they follow appraisal district parcels, land parcels, like what you pay your taxes off of. The census data and the appraisal district data are not a one-to-one correlation. The census data, by definition, those census blocks are gonna go from probably one street, center line of a street, to the other street, center line of the street, while the appraisal district parcels are gonna go from the front of a lot to the back of the lot. So you're gonna see in some instances we're moving stuff around, it might not match up exactly to our subdivision lines or to our neighborhood areas, and that's why. So we can get as close as we can, we kind of make approximations to try to get as close as we can with the census data. So these are the neighborhood areas. We've got the incumbents on. I've also got the multifamily units if we need to look at those. Those were provided by the city. We have the existing lines. Once we start drawing and you're like, oh wait, where was the old line on that? Then what we do is we just pull back up the current council plan as an outline so you can kind of see it, use it as a guide to see what you've moved and what you've changed. that's the very quick version of it. And so if you want to make some suggestions on some changes or some areas that you want to zoom in and look at and try to move from district to district, we can get started.
What's the difference between subdivisions and neighborhoods?
I'm sorry.
The difference between subdivisions and neighborhoods?
I'll show you. I'll show you. It's probably easier to see than for me to try to explain it. Those are subdivisions. They cover the whole city. They're very small. They're almost an equivalent to parcels. Let me get some better looking labels up here for you. When I load this stuff in and out of maps, it comes in, whatever the system decides to cover it, it's always really ugly and not what we want. So it takes me just a second or two to get us a decent looking picture up here. Let's see, we'll go, and we can do red, that's no big deal. We'll keep it red. Okay, bear with me just a second.
So maybe while you're doing that, and maybe I'll ask the question to either David or the rest of the group is, I look at it as almost subdivisions and neighborhoods are like too granular, because right now there are lines that cross neighborhood streets, and it doesn't mean that I'm not a neighbor because he votes for someone else. His line is somewhere else. So I almost kind of ask the relevancy of subdivision for sure, but the neighborhood line, because when you look at it, they're already crossing lines right now. I mean, it's across the street right now. They vote for someone completely. They even vote in a different. My neighbor votes at Lowe's and I vote at the library. That's just a precinct, but still, at that same line is also a district.
But we had, that was one of the things that we factored in when we put the original districts together, is to try to minimize it, but it was impossible to not do it in 3 or 4, maybe 5 areas where you're gonna have like stardust. There's a little section of stardust that on one side you're District 1, the other side you're District 2.
Right.
And so you can walk out the door and look at your neighbors, see a sign that says, vote Bronson, and on the other side you see, vote Crystal.
Right.
And they're not running against each other.
No, I understand that,
So,
but
yeah, I don't think we really focused on that once we started to get down into the minutia to realize, to make it work, those were a couple of areas that kind of went to the wayside.
right, and I think I understand that. I don't want us to get, we obviously can't, we can get stuck in the weeds real quick on this stuff, and I think neighborhoods and subdivisions are the first way to get off in the weeds. But if we look at this from more of the 30,000-foot approach, where we're looking just top down, and every line, obviously I've played around with it a little bit, to figure out kind of what works and what not. But being that I've lived here, and some of these residents have lived here so long, the neighborhoods, and you know what makes sense, and if one district needs to give up some, what makes sense in the areas of doing it. That's you kind of just know what kind of happens or what needs to happen for it to work. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be not neighbors or not friends or anymore. It's just, they're still going to have their neighborhood party. So I tried to explain to my neighbor, we all have our neighborhood party, but you guys vote for someone else. It doesn't change the neighborhood.
That's exactly right. A lot of these neighborhoods, if you look at these areas, they're really large. A lot of these neighborhood areas have thousands of people in them. And, it's not so much that you're going and you're going to try to pack everybody nice and neat into a district, but it's that you're mindful of where you're at on the map. Some areas just make more sense to be together in a council district versus others. And that's all this is. This information that we put up on the map for y'all, it's a guide. It's just for you to get your bearings, to know where it is. If you're working in an area and you say, oh, where are we? What neighborhood is that? And we can pull that up. It's just really to give you the information to do your work. There's no hard and fast rule that you have to follow these kinds of lines at all. It's just to help you with your work.
So I have a question about school lines, because I know farmers or CFB, ISD, like you can go wherever, but like I'm in Janie Stark, so where my kids are.
What we're doing does not change that at all. That's
doesn't?
a district line, right? So
Okay.
the fact that like the Templeton area attends DSC, that's always going to be that way. And the fact that, certain neighborhoods that can attend the Carroll Farms Ranch. That doesn't change. The district lines are drawn by the district, and the district rules that allow them to go anywhere are set by the trustees, the board trustees. So that is not affected by anything that we do. This is solely representation based on council district. So we have 5 representatives, we'll might end up with 5 districts again, and you know what? That just kind of depends on how it all kind of falls together.
So
Yeah,
Bronson, there are a couple of things that I want to throw out, see if they're good issues to try to keep in mind as we go through this. One is, we already know because of the west side, it's what population that they tell us is out there is really not what's out there. So we know that that's off. And there are the west side and the east side, 1 and 4, actually have the most potential for significant development that'll blow up the numbers again, just like we see now, where 1 is 9,000 plus and 5 stayed down at 5,000, which is what we had originally. I think we're constrained in that we can only have a 10% variation. But perhaps as we look at these districts, knowing that 1 and 4 are gonna grow and already have grown, is if we wait or make those a little smaller according to the 2020 census, that may protect us from the 2030 census, or if we decide in 5 years to look at it again, which we can do with the decennial census, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong on that. We could, there's a 5-year census?
No,
No?
no.
When we were doing it
There-
before, we talked about a 5-year. Or is it
Well,
this-
what you have on the 5-year is probably the ACS, American Community Survey. And we look at that, and particularly the 5-year part, for citizen information, citizen voting age population. And that's where we have to get that. It's a sample data, and to get it in a usable form, for anything under 60,000, you have to use the 5-year sample, not a 1-year sample.
Okay.
So that's what that is. It has a margin of error, and it's not something that we can really use to draw districts.
Okay, so then we're really looking at something that's gonna be in place for
Yeah.
10 years,
Right, 10-year.
not a 5-year.
I looked at that, and as a council member, whenever we received that, and it's way off, it was 48,158. I'm staring at it right now, and I think we're way off. I mean,
Yeah.
even if we'd have got 42 or 45,000, that's one thing, but we got 35,000. We got basically a little over 6,000 more residents than what we had. And obviously, we know, I can call off 5 apartment complexes that are developed and done that are that right now.
Right, and
That's the hard part.
whatever the census had, we're 2 years farther along.
Right.
Actually, let's see, this is
2.5.
almost 2 years. It's, April 1, 2020 is the census. And so it's changed since then, but that's the number we have to use.
Right, and so in talking about that, so in July, we'll get ACS numbers again. Are we gonna get numbers based on the census or based on where they were before with the ACS? Because we got
Well-
those every July, it seemed like.
The ACS looks to the census, but it also has other data that it uses, but it basically goes out and samples people. It samples, it has a continuous sample going out. And I forget the percentage each year, whatever percentage of households get a census form or a ACS form. But, like I say, it's a sample and they project from that. And I remember generally for a really big area, it's more accurate because you have a bigger sample size. But still, looking at Dallas, either city or county, I think in 2020, maybe it was 2010, we looked at the ACS for the Hispanic population, and when the census came in, it was like 2% off, which is a huge difference for something that's, say, 2 million, or, the county would be a couple of million people. So, and if you look at Farmers Branch, you know, your margin's not gonna be 2%, it's gonna be a lot more,
It was a lot, so.
because it'll be such a smaller sample.
And that July number that you're talking about that comes out in, there's one that comes out in July and there's one that comes out in January. Those are population estimates from the Bureau,
Where?
from the Bureau.
Okay, yeah. I remember we used to get them on council, we always asked for them, and it was great to think about what was gonna happen on our census numbers, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, and the population estimate, a lot of that is from, other sorts of data, births, deaths,
Current
building
population survey.
permits, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So-
We- Sure, if you would like to ask a question, go for it, Andy.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me ask you this. Is there any prohibition about adding another district totally for like the west side?
No,
Well,
I mean, it just seems like you're going that way, so why
Yeah.
not do that and just assuming that you're gonna have an imbalance in numbers in the west side? But then you can add another chair, another district, another council member, and then you'll have the mayor vote when there's a tie.
the council talked about that, or the committee talked about that last time, and the charter says you've got 5 districts. So to add a 6th one, you've got to amend the charter, and that's going to take a vote of the people and so forth. So maybe that's something that could be done, but until it is, we've got 5.
And
I think we'd have to amend the charter, not only to add 6, but then you change the whole structure of the city, because since our incorporation, we've been set up as a city to be run primarily by the city manager and the staff. Adding the mayor to the vote, you create a strong mayor-type system, and it tends to create an imbalance on the management of the city. So that's one of the things to contemplate there.
And the flip-
And the vote matters, so probably should tackle 5 before we start seeing if we can tackle 6.
You know, in the flip side of that, when I sat on council, I asked that question, and I was told, I was like, well, it affects the balance or the power of the council individually. I was like, it's not about power. I thought it was about doing kind of the right thing, but because what David mentioned, it affects the way our, kind of the government was established, you could assume that you would get a at-large position, which really dilutes the council at that point. So you get into, you know, we're gonna recommend something, and they can either say, yeah, I like it a little bit of it, or, you know, no, thank you. So, you know, after looking at this, I really was kind of started thinking about that based on knowing the west side and seeing how the west side was developing. But when I saw our census numbers and knowing that there's really no precedent set to challenge those numbers, that we're really just kind of stuck with what we got. So with that being said, in just the little maps I've been drawing, I think we can get there. I think we could make a big impact at 5. I think we can redraw the 5. You may see some changes and whatnot, but redraw them to where we really make an impact to our districts that we have now. And, you know, as much as 6, I've thrown it around, it maybe seems logical. The numbers really, we didn't get that influx of 10,000 people over there like we could have thought of. And at 10,000 people, that's a third of the population. That changes the whole scheme, but once we start doing this and we start, you know, seeing suggestions and seeing how these lines change, I think it's very possible to make it work in 5. I really do.
So going back to our growth or our variations, because we have a 10% variation factor that we can have, which is the biggest district and the smallest district can only vary by 10%. So that basically means our smallest district under current numbers would be 6,820 people, and the biggest would be about 7,500. So we've got some room to work if we want to try to at least give a nod towards that. There's more development on 1 and 4, but it's not a necessary thing. It's just a
Right,
something
and I
out
think,
there as a-
One thing, as we're going through this and you look at the tabulation down at the bottom, you see that some of those are in red with the arrow up or down. If it is more than 5, or maybe 5 or more, it's going to show up in red because if you're 5 over and another one's 5 under, that's gonna take you to 10%. And so it sort of automatically flags that, look, here's where you gotta pay attention, and you can see that the one that's minus 17.9 under, it's got the arrow pointing up, saying you've gotta add population. And 3, you've got to take population away. So you can just look at that, you can always tell where you are. Now, it's possible to be at 5 or above and still hit your 10%, because if you're 5 over in one, it's what the smallest one is. So, but typically, you wanna keep it under 5, because then you know you're gonna be okay.
Shelley, can we see the current map with the current district lines and then do an overlay of the neighborhoods?
Of the what?
Of the neighborhoods?
Yes, this is it. Hold on. Let me back out a little bit, and I'll turn those back on.
No, they're yours. They were just about to fall.
By the way, Laura, I apologize for being late. There was a wreck on Stellan's, and
I was right behind you.
Yeah, when.
I feel bad that you have to drive up, you know, we always have the Zoom option, that's why we're in here. Remember
Yeah.
that.
well, we can do that.
Well, yeah, everybody says Dallas is prettier than Austin. Or wait, you're San Antonio.
See, that's almost inconclusive. That's the way I look at that. I even know that.
So.
It's an older map.
Yeah.
It's, you know, like I said, that when I talked to the city's GIS person about it, he was like, you know, he didn't even know the map was on the website.
It's there.
And so that's kind of tells you where we're at, but I didn't want to, since it was on the website, I didn't want to not have it available to you in case that's something y'all are used to looking at, or if it, you know, if it is useful to you. Again, like I said, the subdivisions are a little, they drill down a little more, and you can kind of see the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and that stuff is absolutely verified, and it came from the city as well. So this is just a guide, just to kind of get us, maybe just me, to get me around on the map. I mean, if you tell me we need to go to Brookhaven, I can be like, oh, yes, I'm going over there. So it's just really a guide, you know, for navigation purposes, for discussion purposes. It is not by any means something you have to follow.
You mentioned,
The information that we got today with the Plan A and Plan B, I thought those were both really good, and I thought somebody put a lot of thought into those. I'm not sure who put them together, but they really look good.
Well, the two of us did, and A was designed, and by the way, as I indicated, we don't expect any of those to be what the committee adopts necessarily, because it's up to you, and we figure whatever we do, people are gonna move stuff around and change. But A was pretty much least change, because you knew that 3 was too big, 2 and 5 were too small, so one of them just moved stuff from 3 into 2, and then from 2 into 5, and sort of the least change you could do and get under 10%. Left 1 alone and 5 alone. The other said maybe that area east of Stemmons, we want to take that out of 1 because it's going to be a really big growth area. And 1 is one that was designed after litigation. Because of the litigation, we want to protect that as a minority predominant district. So one way to do that is take that east area, or west area, I'm sorry, out. We took that and then worked from there, and basically had to make some other changes, dumped everything into 3, which became twice the size of the district, and cut it into.
Maybe we could look at both Plan A and B. I did print some of those out, but I just thought that would be good to see and discuss.
Okay.
while you're doing overlays, before we do that, you mentioned you can show apartments. Can you do
Oh,
an
yeah,
overlay with
sure.
apartments on the current district
You bet.
maps or A and B?
Can we hide the neighborhood for now so I don't get confused?
Yeah, get rid of the neighborhoods.
We'll put it back, I promise, guys. I just want to make sure. Just joking. While she's doing that, in some of the maps I was drawing, I started with the 1-3 district connection out there west of 35, and I thought a great dividing feature for those two would be 35. East of 35 is District 1, west of 35, north and south of 635 is District 3, but still allowing it to kind of climb across, maybe along that Farmers Branch Lane corridor, so it encompasses our incumbent that's down there. And that really was kind of the start of the map that I started drawing, was really kind of getting that one situated, because, you know, 3's big right now, and it really helped kind of focus that. And then whenever I kind of started looking at District 1, it kind of artificially stopped at Valley View. And it, obviously, those neighborhoods extend south of Valley View, and it just made sense to continue those neighborhoods, you know, south of Valley View, which kind of got its numbers back right. And then I just started kind of playing with it all. And being that I was in District 2, I lived in the side of District 2 that whenever I would walk, the western parts of District 2 were completely different than the District 2 that I was living in. So I kind of drew District 2 to be kind of the northern side of our community, you know, with Josie as its bound on the west, and with Webb Chapel on its bound to the east. And so that kind of was just made sense kind of neighborhood. So, you know, we can overlay these, but at some point as a group, we have to say, let's put a line here and just kind of get it off and get it over with and say, hey, we like, you know, maybe we can start with the west side. If we all think that that sounds good to keep District 3 west of 635, or west of 35, and 1 east of 35, maybe kind of start there and kind of draw from one side to the other, kind of how it makes sense. But we have to kind of kick it off somewhere and put a line on a map, you know. I don't have a problem looking at y'all's maps, but like you said, what you draw, I mean, obviously we'll decide something different. So just your thoughts.
The one thing that, in particular, that in drawing that and in adding on the B, which was moving the west area into District 3, you've got to add to 1, and I wanted to make sure that as we added stuff, it was the more Hispanic areas to go into 1, to keep that as a predominantly.
Into 1, okay.
Yeah, and those are the areas where I was talking about, when you automatically take District 1 south of Valley View, and you extend it all the way to Josie, that's just, you just did that by default.
Yeah.
So that made sense. It's not like we're extending fingers into, you know, we're not doing this where we're, you know, overlaying and whatnot, but that was kind of.
I was looking at the Hispanic thematic map too.
Right.
Bronson, cutting it off at 35 and then cutting across Valley View, if you look closer at that map, 69 votes get pulled out or is affected by that. So I think that's so small, we could use 35 and Valley View as a dividing line is a good starting point, and say 1 or the new District 3.
That would be District 3, right?
Looks good, but now Bob, I'm sure I heard we said, is 1 you think we should try to put more Hispanics in 1?
Well.
Or state that again so I know.
Okay. Right now, where is Hispanic? What is it, 61.92 VAP? I would like to keep it at least that and maybe a little higher. One of the things is that with the Hispanic population, voting age population takes account of the fact that we're just looking at people over 18. The Hispanic population, you'll normally have a dip between total population and voting age because the Hispanic population has a younger median age than the white population, for example, the non-Hispanic white, or than the black population. The citizenship rate for Hispanics is less than it is for the other two major groups. So the number of voters is going to be less than that. So, you know, getting it a little higher, you know, make sure that that's going to be Hispanic area. But, you know, I can't say that.
That makes sense, because anything you do to one, anything, increases its
That's
Hispanic
right, when you
population.
take that western part out, that
It
increases.
immediately increases
Yeah.
it drastically. I was just looking at it like it's above, like,
And I think that in one, as you move east or south, those are more Hispanic areas anyway. And
Or
those
even,
ones
even
that go in.
north,
Huh?
right above Rolling, the road Rolling, kind of center, top center.
Yeah, it is.
That neighborhood there has an apartment complex. You could easily add that one into one, and then that adds to the missing people that you have, because one's small.
One of the things, and I think it's these apartments right here, is this, let's see, is that in the city?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's via Marquis.
Let me come in closer.
Pardon?
I'll come in closer for you. Zoom in. There we go.
I believe from the litigation, trying to remember certain, you had some apartments here, and you have more single-family residences over here, and the registered voters are basically in the single-family residence.
Right.
So sometimes you add apartments, it may increase your Hispanic number, but it doesn't necessarily increase your voters. So it's just something to be aware of.
Can we draw a line and just see? I mean, I know that we're talking about the implications of making 35 the border, but can we just see what the actual data and what it looks like? It's easier for me to understand when I see the numbers go up.
Go ahead and just make the change. Go ahead.
yeah, but just turn off the blue overlay, because
Yeah,
it's making
one
everything
thing
so
I want
dark.
to point out before we go, I just turned this on, and I don't know that we talked about this at our last meeting, but the circles that I just put up on the map, what that is, we call it a thematic. So if you want to see this, you can say, hey, Sherry, turn the thematic on. But those circles represent all blocks that have at least 50% Hispanic total population. Okay, so a block can have 50% Hispanic total population, but it cannot have many people in it, or it can have a lot of people in it. So the presence of the circle tells you that there's 50% or more Hispanic population in that block. The size of the circle tells you there's a lot of people, there's a little bit of people. So you look at it kind of in two different kind of dimensions, if you will. But whenever we're looking at, District 1, and we're looking at the Hispanic population, and we're looking to try to add something to it, we can turn these circles on, kind of give you an idea of what blocks are at least 50% or greater Hispanic. And if you have a specific question about one of them, then all we have to do is click the circle, and it'll tell you what's in that block.
Is that total or voting? Is that population total or voting?
It is population total.
Okay.
The TA persons is total population?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
Is there a way to turn on here where there's like our major streets, like
Yes.
Bellwood and Valley View and Webb Chapel, so we
I
can
cleared I cleared the map off so we could talk about some of this. I can turn the streets back on so you guys can see.
just the main one, so we can kind of get
Yeah,
like
the
a.
more stuff you put on,
It's good.
Yeah.
the harder it is to see some of the things. You have to.
All right, I'm gonna turn off the thematic, and I'm gonna turn off the neighborhood lines, and then we're gonna go take that area on 35 and start moving some stuff around.
Yeah, Kelsey wants to see that line, just what happens to the numbers. Maybe use, as the map base, instead of using that, use a hybrid that shows the satellite on top of the streets. That's kind of what I did, because whenever I see these colors, I'm like, it's all over. But whenever you use kind of like a hybrid, it shows the houses and all that.
Yeah, we have different base maps that we can turn on, yes. If you prefer the aerial, usually I'll turn these on if we're trying to determine, something really close in. But,
So that shows us main streets as well as like the houses. Maybe that's my eyes, or.
it's just for me, when I have this on, it's hard for me to see the colors. I'm like going, where is that? So I tend to turn these on when we drill down really close. If we're looking at something and we drill down, I'll turn this on. But I tend to use the other lighter map so I can see the shading. Okay, all right, we're gonna go in here, and we're gonna take all this area right here that's in 1, that's currently purple for District 1, and we're gonna move that into District 3, is that correct?
Right.
That area right there
That's it.
has 1,689 people in it.
Right, so,
We're gonna add that to District 3.
yep.
That's gonna explode.
But see, when you figure, we'll see real quick is that it's not this change that does it. We gotta make like 5 other changes to
Yeah.
really start, like, you're gonna see that District 3 now is grossly too big, and now its northern border can't even be Valley View. It's gonna have to be south of Valley View Lane.
Let me back out just a little bit.
What's the rationale behind south of 635 being part of District 3?
It is in 3.
It's already in 3.
Already there.
It's already in 3.
Sorry, it not being a part of District 1.
We're not supposed to separate districts that have district, you talking about now? Or in this one?
No.
No, like, why is there that little piece and then the south of 635 is in
There was
District?
no one out there when they drew that map.
Probably at the time, and I don't remember specifically, but, number one, if you put it in to 1, it probably made 1 too big. And the other
There were
thing
3
is,
complexes.
One senior and
my guess
2
is there was
regular.
Probably
One
some
senior and 2
significant
regular.
population there, and it would make it less Hispanic.
So when they did this, there was no residents, there was 1 single-family house north of 635. And there were 3 apartment complexes, 1 senior living and 2 regular apartment complexes on the peninsula south of 635.
Yeah, so the idea was to protect too much growth out there affecting 1, and the Hispanic population or percentage.
And that was, I think, well, the city ended up doing that and drawing District 1, but we were also showing the plaintiffs that because ultimately it had to be presented to the court had to sign off on it, and, so you want them to be okay with it, which I don't remember if there was any negotiation about it, but that's.
Well, there was only 1 house out there, so north of 35 couldn't affect the election
That's
of
right.
District
It
1 at
was-
that
it
time,
was
because there was
nothing.
no houses there.
Well, add to that, Mercer Crossing development wasn't even approved. It was a thought,
commercial.
but it had not been presented formally. So there wasn't even thought that
No.
the north side would have a big impact on 1.
What if you use Valley View as your marker? Like North Valley View becomes 1, South Valley View becomes 3. Using the 35 corridor.
Should we remove 3 on the east side of 35?
You can't because we have incumbent there
I
on
see.
Millwood. So what I did when I started doing this is obviously you can take and do exactly what she says and drop that to Valley View, but you're gonna see that changes the numbers, but still 3 is too big. So 3 has to come over,
Yeah, three is 4,000.
come over to what's Austell, and it has to even drop south all the way down to Farmers Branch Lane, and that captures.
Go to Farmers Branch Lane.
that captures the Millwood address, and you get that whole swooping area, and you end up at 7,000 and so.
Are we trying to, just for clarification, are we trying to keep District 1 primarily Hispanic? Like, we are trying to protect the, okay. Okay.
Well, I mean, y'all are the ones that make the decision, but if you make District 1 so it's not very Hispanic, you're opening yourself up to litigation.
Okay.
We're litigated to get where we are today.
Right, so we need another 1,600 in District 1 to get close to that ideal.
But I would like to see the line to Valley View.
Yeah.
Can we just, because I'd like to visually see the numbers, because I noticed the numbers change when you drew it to 3. Does that make sense? When you color coded it to where it was District 3, I saw how the numbers adjusted. So I'd like to just see if it was at Valley View and 35 where 1 went west of 35 up to Valley View Lane, and then 3 stayed south of Valley View Lane and 35. I just want to see where the numbers are shifting.
Okay, I
think
think
that's the
we're,
one
I
we're
mean, I
just-
think we're there now.
Okay, so hang on, I'm gonna walk up there, because I see what she's talking
Yeah,
about.
she wants that,
The other
that
side,
side.
the other
On
side.
the west
Oh, on
side.
the other side,
Back out a
okay,
little bit. So
okay.
I see what you're
It's
talking
gonna
about.
affect 69 votes
In this area
that are on the north side of Valley
District
View.
1.
That
So
whole, this
everything-
whole section right here?
So
No, she's going
Okay.
left, she went
Okay.
left.
On the west side, right?
She went to west side.
You're
Check, the west side.
Go the other way.
The other way.
Yeah.
West.
Where the 3 is, there, right there.
So make this all one, above Valley View, out to the.
Put it in one.
Oh, there's one, okay.
Okay,
That's
let's
only
do
gonna
it.
affect 69 votes, because there's nothing,
Oh, because it's all the commercial.
69 votes in their extended stay hotels.
It's still worth seeing, though.
Yeah.
Is that something that is potential future residential development, or?
All of that area that we're talking about is industrial.
Yeah,
So
It
very
doesn't-
That's a lot of
unlikely.
vacant.
that was my recollection from the past, but.
Yeah, landfills.
Behind it.
Yeah, that is,
There's one
that is
house
all
up there, right?
landfill.
One house.
By the soccer
Yep.
fields?
It's, yeah, that one little white house is.
Yeah.
Landfill and the nature preserve.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that house.
I'm like
This area
driving.
right
Yeah, over by the,
Yeah.
by the,
One.
One, yes.
Yes.
those kids went to our school, we had to take one bus.
So what we're gonna see right here is that our net change doesn't strengthen District 1.
But then if you make 1,
South to,
right,
Come
Oh, you're
point.
saying like
Come
all the
point.
way?
Come on up.
make Valley View
All the
your
way.
border. Where you put it, so like, where you bring this down to right here.
Make that part of 1.
Becomes your 1.
yeah.
So the
Does that
problem,
make
the
sense?
problem that's gonna create is making 2 much bigger.
I understand that, I just
So-
wanna see the
Okay,
numbers.
Yeah.
gotcha.
So that'd be, let's get in a little
I mean,
bit.
part of this process is understanding how the system works, right?
Right.
How the numbers
That's-
change. Right.
Yeah, part of drawing a plan is seeing what does work and what doesn't work.
Less than 1% deviation. Every single one, and look at the population. So basically, I swapped
You want to keep going over
all
this part here too?
Yeah.
No, stop,
Yeah.
stop here.
into 5.
All right, hang on just a minute. Let me, I think we'll leave that. I'll come clean that up later.
About 1,000 population.
It's just the right of way.
Current incumbents, but I got rid of
There we go.
people.
Can
That's
we
fine.
zoom out a little bit?
Just so you can see,
that down to 7.6.
but look at that. But we'll,
Park is that, I don't have my contacts on.
Yeah, the populace, what?
The park, it's in the.
Oh, that's orange. Okay.
I probably got
Be a little more
40 hours.
in front of me.
Can we take that little corner on the far top?
No,
bit
it's
more
the same,
population.
it's the same
Right at the very
information,
top.
but
This one?
No, right there. How about that one right there?
Oh, go
Yeah.
Above,
The Dutch Village
here?
area.
yeah.
There's a-
That area right there?
And make it 1.
Yes. See if we get the difference.
So 1 is good, but 3 is.
Can we
zoom out a little bit so we can see 3.
Couldn't do anything for 2 and 5, huh?
That's what I'm saying, 3 and 1 all the way down.
Could Josie be the line for District 3 and see if it'll eat up?
35 and put everything east of 35
Josie.
into 2.
Yeah, Josie to 3,
You've got
like the Janie Stark side.
You have 2 incumbents right there. So you can switch the streets. So there's a little block that extends right now that Crystal's not in. You can put, oh yeah, no, she is in it. You can flip it to where it works. That works. Or it catches Michael and it catches Crystal. So 2 stays with 2 and 1 stays with 1.
So if you took, so we're 352 high, if you took like right there and put it back in 2, what does that do to our numbers?
Let me zoom in. You want even line right through here?
Use Birch Lawn, yeah.
This to 2?
So can you answer this question while you're doing that? I was messing with the little software piece I was using and I couldn't capture all the people and I didn't have a street selected. When I selected that street, it made all the people appear. So is that them trying to make the privacy thing you were talking about, that 20% privacy piece with the cell blocks?
Hang on, let me do the cleanup.
Okay, that's fine.
One thing at a time. It gets confusing after a while if I get messy. So, okay.
Are the red squares where the council live?
So can you pan out just a little bit more?
You bet.
So
And back
Is
out,
that
you mean?
District 1
There we go.
person?
Yeah.
This?
Edge of the
Is that what you were talking about?
Anything smaller?
so if you now took in.
As long as they're in there, it doesn't matter, or is it like, as long as they're barely in there?
Into 1?
Yeah.
As long as they're in.
See what.
Vanessa, you were saying to move,
We're isolating
I
5.
thought it would, I wanna see what it looks like District 2 coming down to, like, or on the Josie side, like the east side of Josie,
But we can swing
like,
2 way down to.
I can-
here's Josie right there.
yeah, like if we did this side.
Still
A great dividing
200 short.
Yeah.
1 and 2. It's just-
Yes.
But we're not heading that. It's fine. We'll get there. That's why I said we
You're
kind of
okay in 1.
have to let them work through it and see what
You're okay in
see how it
1.
works.
If one's a little sharp, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they live at Josie and, what, Sundown?
Who?
Crystal?
No, she lives on Stardust.
Stardust and
That's the
Josie.
right, that's the
Like
east side of
14
Josie then.
3,
So I'm trying to understand, why didn't we go south
Those 2 guys?
on the west side? South of Valley View, I'm just trying, I don't remember.
That's 2 off.
Just to see, they just wanna know what the numbers
they're
did.
just looking at different.
Bring in, so then
Now I see why it takes a long time.
Oh, I've got in my map 50 hours and 45 hours. 50.
So why can't we just start with what people have?
It's not ready. The group's not ready.
Oh, I see.
It's not ready. It's not ready. It's just,
Artistic process.
gotta get
I
there.
have it, I mean,
Yeah,
I have it,
take
so if you have
everything
it, why not?
on,
It's nice.
Let me pan up so we can look at all of it.
like
I have everything here.
everything
I know.
else, yeah.
I didn't make it as easy as-
I wanna see, like, having like the major street like Josie, like, be the dividing line
Yeah.
for that, just to see what the numbers look like.
Still needs a bunch, so we're gonna have to-
I want us to get messy.
Shelley, when you're done.
Oh, this is a messy thing though.
Totally fine.
Shelley, when you're
Sure.
done, can we
Doesn't
use
have to be.
Josie also as a boundary line just to see what it'll do to the numbers?
Come show me.
Do you wanna show her?
I don't have my contacts on, so it's hard
Come
to
point.
see, but where,
Sorry,
where Josie
my
is.
feet are very asleep right
Yeah.
now.
Josie here? It's Josie right there in the middle. Right here.
That's Jesse.
Yeah, like if we could try that, like go run up that and
You
make
wanna-
that be the dividing line for the.
Do you want to keep that in 2?
We just had that one there and it put District 1 way
This-
over.
this area
They're
we
like
just-
400
yeah.
over. So we pulled those out and instead pulled that out and added this group, and that puts that number, that's, the ideal number is 7154. That makes District 1 7152.
Let me get you back up a little bit so you can have a better picture. Okay.
So what, you're talking about putting that one back into 1?
Mhm.
And
You want
with
that-
that one in 1, it put 1 up at almost 7.
But what about if you took off a little bit at the top?
Go north.
We need a laser.
Right?
So if you take off from the
Try to
north,
get the end of
I
this.
think we added 1,000 people, we added that group in 1,100.
I can last that back up
Are
and
you
see
trying
exactly
to-
how many people
Are you
were in
trying to
that.
get one?
We're not,
No.
the size doesn't matter, it's the people.
That has about 887 people in
It's
it.
the people.
So,
And which, the one that's up there in the middle between that yellow and the one that's 5, is that purple? Is that in one right there?
all the purple.
Right there,
all-
right
all
there.
Purple's one.
I mean, the lighter purple is also with the purple.
Can you see the grade? Do you want me to change the color of District 5?
Yes,
A little more?
yes, right
Is that
there.
hard to
That's
see?
5 right now.
Oh, it's 5 right now, okay.
It's just not the same color of green.
Hang on a minute, let me adjust the color on District 5. It's kind of getting washed out there with,
So if I've got the lowest number, it's almost like we've got to.
So we're gonna have to push 5
Push
down,
five down.
take a lot of 2 out of 5, and we give 2 a lot of 3 potentially.
Yes.
So what did we say about the part of south of 635 if we added that into one? I know there's not that, like, there's not a huge population change, but geographically,
South of where?
south of 635.
Oh, there's 2,000, there's
Yeah,
3,000.
there's 3,000 people there.
3,000
In the
people,
apartments?
because there's only so many apartments.
Yeah.
So,
They don't vote. Or does that matter?
So now one is becoming
I
like,
mean, it's supposed to be
12,000
like voting constituents, they don't vote.
if one right now is at 71, and we're gonna
With the
add
Cooks Creek.
Yeah.
3,900 people
Wouldn't
to
that
it.
not matter
Look.
then?
Wouldn't it?
So, you know, if you took
They
this
are, but
out, it
like, they
affects one,
don't.
almost none at all.
Whenever the lawsuit.
But right now, you've got the right number.
yeah, just for reference,
So
let
that
me,
would put 1 and 4 at the right numbers, roughly.
let me grab this. I'll tell you, we can see exactly how many people are in here. There's not a lot. It's
Should be
not
69.
driving.
Maybe 70.
We have 69 people in that whole section. So
that-
it's
that
not-
Single-family house isn't occupied anymore.
It's not doing anything to District 1.
Yeah, it was a rental. It was a rental because it was our lift station
Yes,
guy
ma'am.
rented that for a long time.
Yes, Host City.
yeah, let's do it.
Let me pan back.
So
hang
what
on a
we're
minute.
saying is this part right here has about 3,000 people.
Right.
Okay.
And the area above it that's in 3 probably has 2,000 people.
Which
And west
area
of 35.
do you want to look at?
Percentages. the
No, we're
minority.
actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just want to make sure I'm understanding.
They don't know that.
Is the minorities would be like the black and the Hispanic added up, right?
Back up at 5?
Right, but they
But I
don't.
think it's also with that, like, I think they're not including like the Asian subpop, but they're still minority, but I think
And maybe that little
it's
piece
just
of
small,
right
they're
there.
not
If
actually.
you take this whole
That's my
section,
question.
That's all of the book, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
that's the
right here-
two big subdivisions that
yeah,
were.
kind of like Idaho and then this area.
When I was like, get up there, I'm like, get up there, girl. For all of us right now.
You're gonna have to, you're gonna,
Are you sitting council?
but Terry's not right.
Are you sitting council?
Yes.
So that's what changed.
Oh, wait, we're recorded.
Try right.
This right here too, right?
Yes.
I'm paying attention to the numbers. Paying attention to the numbers.
This guy here, down, this, this. That guy, all of that. Yeah? Okay, hold on, let me clean up.
Conversations are good conversations.
Let me get rid of these little red
Yes,
lines
okay.
along the
This
creek
might be a
here.
math thing, and I'm just really not that smart at math, but can you help me understand, like, in the minority category at the end? My brain says that they should be adding up together, like where it says black, Hispanic, and then minority.
Asian.
Five
and-
Okay, that's-
Still
Five
low.
is still
So,
small.
so like, look at the, if you
Why
look
is
at the
it
first
less?
line, why is it less?
Like 77 and then 2.99 and it says minority 67.
Because 67% is the, if you take the,
See what it does.
and you add, yeah.
David, did you go all the way to West Chapel?
So the Hispanic people are calculated in the minority category.
It is all the way
Most
West
often
Chapel.
also in the.
But that's yellow now.
Oh,
So,
that's
remember, it's not a race, it's a ethnicity. So,
So it's really 100% minus whatever's under the category of white, got it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So should be green.
All of that is 5 right there.
It's time for
This
us
is
to
all
be-
5.
So five still leaves
That's a
800
different commission.
people.
What are,
that's gonna be too many, I think.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I feel like we're not being
I'm gonna
included
send
in
you
the
to her,
conversation.
I just couldn't send it to
So,
her.
okay,
Ms. Smith,
remember,
she has something you wanted to say.
three's heavy.
I want
Three's
to be
heavy.
included in the
So
conversation.
we're gonna have to push people.
I've been reading a lot of Brene Brown.
Two need,
And
not,
so,
not what, we need
right
to
now,
push with
talk
five
to
a
me
little
about your
bit.
vulnerability.
We can like start our own and then.
Right there,
And guess what? The reason that happened at the end tonight, friend.
into five.
No, lean in, y'all. We're gonna share.
You're gonna have to do this kind of organized, because we got all these different conversations going on, nobody's.
Okay, hang on, here we go. We gotta get, let's focus back and let's have one conversation at a time, because Pete's scolding me over here.
Yeah, we gotta have some focus here,
Into
or we're
five.
never gonna do anything.
Okay, so I think what we need to do is we need to like, let individually go around the room and give
Ask
your,
questions.
get your answers question, but say, here's where my ideas on the lines are, and let's talk about your two changes, and then let's go to the next person. And let's find an area that we agree upon, so we can move forward, because right now, we don't have any agreement anywhere at all. So I think we need to kind of reset, like hit the undo button, and go back to where we were and come up with something that we agree upon, and that works, and where we need to really focus on, we can't think about land area because it's irrelevant. We need to think about voting population. And sometimes smaller land areas have greater voter populations. When you start clicking on those cell blocks, those green dots that she had, you can start seeing where the green dots make the most impact. And when you have a lot of those green dots over in District 2, and you're needing to bolster District 1 and perhaps District 2, all you gotta do is include some of those green dots that weren't previously included, and it really radically changes the map.
So should the dots be on there for?
Well, they're off now, but you can put them back on there.
Which dots?
Those
Oh,
green
the
dots
green
that
dots.
show where it's more than 50%, those are very, very relevant to what we're doing, because in those areas, greater than 50% of the population is Hispanic.
Right.
But we're focused on the voting age. But where those dots are, it kind of follows, majority of the time.
You're right.
Is there a way to change the color based on population density within the districts?
Say that again.
Is there a way to change like the color, the color based on the population density in each district? So like it's a little bit darker where there's more people.
I can
The
do,
dots get bigger.
I can do
But-
That's
circles.
what those dots
But
are.
that's
just
for
the-
the Hispanic population. I'm talking
Yes.
about the overall like voting.
We can turn Hispanic off and I can make it overall and you'd have the same, you'd have a thematic, but just like this, but it would be for total pop instead of Hispanic. So you have one or the other and turn them back and forth if you want to do it that way.
Why do we have
I can,
Hispanic so
we can
much?
also turn on, hold on a
Part
minute.
of our
Trying to protect the
resolution was to keep
Hispanic.
one district, minimum, a
A majority,
majority minority.
So. And so we need to keep the pink or the dots in mind.
Okay, those numbers are total population in a block. So if you're looking, if you're getting down to where you're starting to fine tune some certain areas, we can just turn on the total pop in each block.
Right. And so when y'all start looking at those big areas that you were adding, thinking, oh, we're swooping all that in, but you added one vote, or you added 60 votes, or 60 people. When some of these, you can take 2 streets and add 250.
Can we do the dots with the total population?
They're dots with total population, yes.
Can you do like the voting and not just total?
So those,
pop?
were those numbers
Isn't that
voting
what-
age or voting or total
That-
numbers?
I
Yeah.
thought that's what you were saying, or were you
Are
saying
we
total?
so are we trying to make sure that it's equal as far as voting population or population?
Total population.
Ah,
You want
okay,
it
okay,
equals
okay.
total. Now, voting age population, and it's easier to look at that after you get things in balance.
Gotcha.
To see if, what the voting age population is. It's generally going to be about the same, but like I say, Hispanic voting age population is going to be a little less. Non-Hispanic white, non-Hispanic black will be a little more than the total percentage. Obviously, the numbers will be less, but percentage-wise, it'll probably go up. So, but what you want to do is get things balanced in total population, and then, we'll look to see what the voting age population is.
So-
Those numbers were taken from the census.
Okay.
That's what we were taking.
So to me, what it sounds like is, so we want to protect the Hispanic population in District 1, right? But in order to do that, then we have to look at the population density in the other districts so we can figure out what to move around while still maintaining the integrity of District 1.
So Bob,
And what you have right now, the changes you've made, put one in absolute balance, and it has a very strong Hispanic
so
majority.
Bob, would you point, just so we're all looking at the same column?
Oh,
We know we're the
couldn't
same
hear.
one, is it the?
Here's,
You wanna talk?
see here, you're two people under,
No,
Yeah.
but you're talking about the Hispanic part right now. So is it the?
right here.
So what about the Hispanic under the racial demographic, the total population versus voting age? We've got to be looking at the orange one, don't we? Correct. Not the blue one.
This is total population.
Right.
Hispanic is 80%, and you come over, here at 70 or
They're not ready.
But
We don't have like
the
5%.
ideal district size, 7,154, is based on total population,
Total
not
population.
voting age population.
That's right.
So the real key index we need to be looking at is the columns in orange.
Well,
For,
really, the key for balance is these columns here.
I understand, but
And then-
in terms of protecting the Hispanic.
Protecting, I would look more to voting age, because that tells you more voting strength.
Okay.
And actually, the voting strength is gonna be less than that, because there's gonna be a citizenship fall off.
Can I also ask a question after Ms. Smith?
Nessa has a question.
No, I didn't, it's not really so much as a question, but, I'm glad that Bronson kind of brought us back, because I was feeling like we're making changes, but we're not giving the rest of the table a chance to, like, process what's being said. I'm deaf in one ear, so it takes me a second to hear, but, like, I feel like we're just doing a lot of clicking on the map, but not giving the rest of the table a chance to hear what the conversation was, or look at it for a second. So that's just what I was wanting to slow down just a little bit, so the rest of us can get a chance to kind of process it before we start clicking more buttons again.
And I'll apologize because I was putting on some of those. If you want, I'll kind of explain to you why I was asking to try a couple of moves, so you see where it shows up on these numbers.
I think Delia had a question.
So I just want to make sure, it's okay, we don't have to hit the target population, right? It's okay to have the deviation of 10%.
Right, you wanna be
Okay.
within, if you're within 5%,
Each direction.
you know, if this deviation number
Right.
is within 5%, and basically it will mean that it shows as green.
Either over.
And it's probably, right, over or
Okay.
under,
Okay.
Okay,
it'll probably work out.
okay, great. I was just wondering because I noticed like one of them went all the way down to negative, like 2 people. So I was just trying to make sure that I was clear that it was the deviation that mattered and
Yeah.
not the hitting the target
Difference.
number.
Okay.
Yeah, right now, on this one, whatever changes we've made, 2 and 3 are the only ones that are really out of balance.
Gotcha, thank
So
you.
that,
Hang on,
and
one
that's
second,
what I
next.
what I was looking at is, so we're trying to get everything as close to that as possible. So we moved 1 around to where we got it to within 2. We moved 5, made 5 bigger to where we got it within 32, or 33. 4 is still the exact same way it was. And so if we took 3, sum of 3 and put it in 2, we could balance those out relatively easily. And then, so we meet that criteria, and then it ultimately will be, do we meet that criteria? So that's where I was, what some of those changes were.
Right, you know, if you balance 2 and 3, you have something you can look at and say, gosh, is this what we want, or, you know, do we want to move stuff around some more, whatever.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, you had a good point, because everybody was talking, so-
Right.
but we were kind of getting to where we wanted to go. In fact, we're just
But
about
we gotta bring
there.
everybody
No,
else
we weren't in the
along.
conversation.
The conversation.
Well, I had said a whole
And
lot.
anything that, like, nothing's set in stone.
Yeah,
I know, but it was, I think it's like not understanding why or where, because it was just moving so fast and a lot of, no,
I apologize.
it's okay.
It's okay. It's
We're all
exciting.
excited,
It's
yeah.
exciting, yeah.
I know, it's kind of like, you know, on
This is my
election night,
first.
you got all those guys with the teleprompters and saying, well, where are we in this county, and let's go to the sub-counties.
Yeah. And why and how? I don't wanna re-ask questions.
Yep. So, and ultimately, this plan wouldn't look a whole lot different than I think the 5A, the first
Right.
5 is slightly different. But
Plan A.
not significantly different.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the beauty of what they have, it's computerized, they could do like 600 models and they're all different. One street different, two street different, so all we're doing is kind of moving the decks on or the chairs on the deck.
So looking at 2 and 3,
Yes.
we need to move,
Holy moly.
yeah, that,
Roughly 1,200 feet.
yeah.
Like we could shift that down.
Do you want me to turn the circles off?
Whatever they want.
I think you leave circles on, I don't think it affects anything here.
Yeah.
It actually might make it a little easier to figure out how to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I.
If we completed this process, and I don't, you know, if you want to complete the process, we can, but I'm not gonna, I don't want to capitalize anything. I don't want to be the nerd in the room.
Does everybody agree? I feel we should. We made
Keep the
it.
green.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
go ahead
And then that's an option, yeah.
Get there and just hit the save button and call it option
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
So now we need to add 1,400, 13 to 1,400 to District 2 and take them out of 3. So how about you take that whole block? and-
Yeah, Tom Field.
Don't you have the
Tell us
numbers?
what that does. What's that?
Can't you put the numbers back in?
You want the labels, the numbered labels?
The voting numbers. I thought you had the
Yeah.
population numbers.
It's total population.
To me, it seems like
Yeah.
2
That
should go
won't
all
get
the
us
way,
quite there.
Let me get you in here a little
What are you saying,
closer.
Christie?
2 should go all the way on Farmers Branch Lane.
Yeah,
If
to
it
Tom
goes-
Field maybe?
All
To
the way-
Austell.
all the way to Denton Road.
Well, still, you can't go there because of
The incumbent.
Tracy's residence.
Yeah, I
So
think,
where's Tracy's residence?
She's
She's further down.
Right, she's just south of Farmers Branch. Yeah,
Right there.
Yeah.
A little bit down.
She's next door to
It's
Mountain Park.
32.
let me gather these up and then I'll zoom out just a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of get an
Right
idea.
there.
David, I was saying all
What's
the way to
sitting here.
Denton, on Farmers Branch Lane.
Let's see where
Right
this
here.
gets us first.
That grouping right there is about 1,014 people.
How many?
No, here's the deal. We have
So
So
we
you're
still-
within about 200.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead and apply that one.
Okay.
Let me see what the numbers are.
If we pull all the way to Denton.
Oh, look, that's pretty good.
So now we need 250 more.
Well, that wasn't what she wanted.
You're actually in balance.
That's
That was the opposite.
Yeah, it's completely opposite.
Oh, I know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, it is in
No.
balance.
You're in
Yeah,
balance.
so Farmers Branch
It's
Lane all the way to
actually in
Denton.
balance, because
Okay, let's try to, hey, we're gonna stop, hang on, we're gonna stop for a second and try to, we're all talking and everyone's getting frustrated and I don't want that. So we need to just talk we need to get through one map and save it. We're not getting anywhere. We can, if the group is disenfranchised, we can start back over to 0 and save another map, but we're almost to getting a numbers to where we can save something. We can do this 100 times and save a map, 5 of them for each of us. It doesn't, that's what we're here for. We have up until June 21st to present this. So, and we want to present the best thing. The best thing, not for each of us, but for the whole entire city. The best thing for District 2, best thing for District 1, the best thing for all of our residents. And so that's why we're making sure that we send this to the moon and get it right. And, because this is going to be for the next 10 years. So I don't want us to feel, we can start over and save another map, but we need to get somewhere. And so far, we're only 1.3% or 0.3% from making all of them numbers jive. And that will just give us a starting map that we may never open ever again. But we need to accomplish something, and something is better than nothing, in my opinion. So if we want to, we can continue to modify District 2 to where it gets into the green, and we can hit the save button and wipe it clean.
So Christie had wanted to go to Denton Drive, right?
It was just a thought, you know.
That's a great thought.
Yeah.
The reason we can't is that's Tracy's district is right here, goes all, this Tracy's block. goes
And from
all-
Farmers Branch Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, Farmers Branch Lane to Denton Drive.
So
That's
so
Tracy's block.
That's,
She's asking to capture this part?
Yes.
right.
In
the
District Two.
Okay,
North
so
of
the
Farmers
only
Branch.
problem is with 500 there and 90 there, it's gonna blow it out. But if you added this little section instead of this one, then I think your numbers would be just a.
Well, let's just see what it looks like, and then we can see the numbers
Yeah.
change.
This is gonna be
And then my thought process was the bottom half of 2 would go to 3.
That's 567 people.
What just happened to the map? So when you hit, you didn't affect the change, you just clicked them. Make the change so we can see what happens.
So make that change and see what it does. It's gonna, I think it's gonna.
Into two?
You want to take a piece of the bottom right and make that something?
Yeah.
Take 380 and 2.
Yeah, so.
There you go.
So they're all green.
And the one good thing about that is 3 is the smallest, but it's also gonna be the one that gets the most growth over time. So that works there. And then if you wanted to tweak 4 and make it a little bit smaller, you might do that by taking one, like Brook Hollow out of it.
Good job, Christie.
Okay, so we can, after this change, we can save our first map, and we should give ourselves a round of applause. Because we're not making progress. And then once we hit save,
I'm done.
we start again. That's the best thing about.
But we're not
every-
finished?
Yeah, that's why I
Christy's
don't
like, but I did it, we're good.
Solve the city's problem in one meeting. Great job.
Hang on, I'm gonna give you a clean looking map.
We need to save it though.
Wait, did we save it though?
That's what your plan looks like.
Huh?
Yep.
Oh, that's, okay.
Yeah,
I
give
can't
give
say
me a
it.
good look at it before I
Press it
hit
all.
save. Any
No,
last?
okay, now let's,
So in numbers
Again.
wise, Hispanics, we keep one well in the Hispanic majority, both in voting age and in total population. And 2 is not far behind.
so that's a good thing that you brought up. So I'll just go ahead and speak because I like to talk. But in walking District 2, I felt like a lot of the residents that answered the door for different things were Hispanics. And so whenever I drew these maps, I didn't look at it. I feel like y'all all got very geographical very quick. It's like territory. And I feel like that totally spins it out. But I looked at protecting populations that lived in those communities. And those communities sometimes spanned big streets like Webb Chapel. And so when I drew District 2 as it ended at Webb Chapel. It was only west of Webb Chapel, all the way to Josie Lane and all the way up to Fike.
Okay.
Why
So-
don't you show us how to go up here and
Okay,
show us how
well,
to.
I got some ideas, but I just want to make sure that we don't get caught up on the wrong, on geographic, you know, if you all want to present to council number 1 being the largest, and that's great, but we need to make sure we do justice to the other districts and the other voting populations that are here. But so that's one of the things that when I started really looking at one worked very well being just east of 35. It works very, very well because it really strengthens its numbers and it makes it like very, it's okay.
You mean west,
No, only east of 35.
District 1?
So, all right, so what's,
So,
what do you get?
so what I want to do is just put that food for thought. So let's not look at big boundaries as we have to stop there. We, just because I'm going to use my neighborhood, just because my neighborhood has also been in District 2 since District 2 started, it doesn't mean it belongs there. It just, that's the way it was drawn.
I know.
So my neighborhood, it borders District 5. It could be in District 5. It could very well be in District 5. And it may make more sense doing that. So as we're looking at these, think of the neighborhoods, not from a map where you see Dutch Village. Think of who lives up there and what does it, keeping them in the same kind of group.
That's what I was thinking when I was saying Farmers Branch Lane all the way to Denton, because I know who lives there,
Right.
you know? So, and then it does make more sense where you live to be in District 5, to me.
And so you look at that, and what that does is David just mentioned, now you have a second district that has got a majority. And it's got a stronger majority than District 1. You start looking at that voting age, and you start looking at you really start changing the dynamic of it, if you think about it globally. So moving forward, we can all start talking about the next lines we're gonna draw, but we haven't even given any love to District 1, or 5. So we need to start on one side of the map again and lock it down and then work the other direction. So we started on 1 and 3 last time. Maybe we should start on 4 and work.
What do you mean show love to 1 and 5?
Well, meaning we haven't done any changes to them or done any kind of
Oh, yeah.
changes to those districts. Yes, sir.
Does it really need to be changed?
Well, it has been changed.
When I look at the changes, it didn't really, I look at Webb Chapel as such a dividing street. I look at Josie. Those could be district boundaries.
I agree.
Those could be, Josie and Valley View could be a 1 and 2
I
district boundary.
agree.
That makes a lot of sense.
Why don't you show us that? Because I think it's easier to understand if you show us what you're talking about, and, because verbalizing, I don't think most of us are.
Start here, make
see-
changes, and then not save it, it goes back to here, right?
No, I can, what I can do is I'm gonna let me export out the shape of this one and save it back, and then we can continue working.
Well, that way we can continue.
And then if I need to pull it back, we can pull it back. So give me just a second, let me get this one.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask one more
When you
question?
make
So
changes, you
with,
make them to this
is
one,
it just we have to
even
keep
though it's
one
saved.
district that's like primarily Hispanic, or it has to be District 1?
make it saved.
Well, that's the district that was litigated to that to begin with. So it's almost like you wouldn't want to change it up too much because we have an incumbent that's there, and that she has to be in the district that she's in, just by the charter rules. So we couldn't just say, hey, we want to call it District 3 now, because then we just,
But I'm saying, like, if when we were doing the map, if for some reason, like, District 2 was like more
Was the
higher
minority.
Hispanic, and it was, or the higher majority, does it have to be District 1, or we just need one that's the majority?
I don't know if it was District 1 was called out, Pete, or was it one district?
Say it again?
So was one district called out, or District 1 called out as needing to be the Hispanic majority when we were in litigation?
No, that was just the way we, well, I don't remember, let's see, of course, you didn't have districts before. That was just the easiest number to put on it, it didn't matter.
Doesn't
So-
matter which district.
So it doesn't, so to answer a question, what's the answer? Is it, we need to have
To have
one district, or we need to have District 1?
A district.
One
A
district.
A district just happens to be one.
But as a practical matter, since you're incumbent,
Lives in one.
the heaviest Hispanic population
Right.
is there. That's where you're going to have a Hispanic district. Now, you can call it something else, but
But
since you already have a District 1 incumbent.
if I was to guess her question is talking about, what if District 2, after all this shakes out, ends up to being the bigger majority? That's just the way it shakes out, right?
Yeah.
District 1's still gonna elect what District 1 wants to elect,
Right.
but then the opportunity exists in District 2.
What you don't want to do, I think if you could make 2 Hispanic districts, that's good. But you don't want to do it in such a way that neither one is effective. You want to make sure that you have one. And, you don't want to rob from Peter to pay Paul and have nothing. So, one of the things that we will do, if we have something like that, we'll go back and I'll pull up CVAP numbers or other sorts of numbers to get an idea of what the voting strength is.
Well, that's one thing that the Voting Rights Act says, is that you shouldn't dilute one district just to purposely make 2 districts, just so that you have 2 districts, because it dilutes both of them, and then you may not get the desired.
If you could draw 2, that's good, but you don't want to take an area of a whole lot of minority group, split it in 2 so that neither one is effective. But if you can make both of them effective, that's great. It's,
The big bucks.
it's,
Where is
Somewhere anywhere you're going.
and I can talk about other cities and how
I
that has
remember
worked
the
out.
population increase
stuff,
was
but,
with what ethnicity? Do you remember?
It's
I don't remember.
you know, I think just because we get something at 50%.
So what we increased to
whatever,
2010
that's
to 2020
probably
was not the same, like we are increasing
An
the span
effective
to 2010 was
It's
off the
gotta be
charts.
higher than that.
But it wasn't the same off the charts to 20.
Was it still the majority of the increase?
Someone asked a
It was not the
question
majority of the
about
increase.
So what was
the
the majority?
definition of that,
Hang on, everybody
American,
listen.
Asian,
the definition
I
of
need to
that,
pull it up.
I gotta pull that back up.
minority, is that, like, is that Asian, you've got white, black, Hispanic, and then you've got minority, is that, it's like other?
Yes, the minority column is simply white minus everybody else.
Okay.
So that
White
minority
minus
column,
everybody.
yeah, minority column is everybody else but
If
white.
you take
We just took,
white plus minority, you get
yeah,
100.
if you add them, yeah, that gives you 100%. So the minority column is
I got you.
just
Okay.
So
absence of
That
white.
makes sense. Thank you.
Pete, what would happen if, in one of these maps, we've got an election coming up, and we've got two, one incumbent, one non-incumbent? If the line got drawn differently where one of the non-incumbents wins, but under the new map, they're not in that district anymore.
I'll let you answer that question.
So we had,
So if we come up with a new plan, gets implemented, it's gonna be for the next election cycle. What happens if an incumbent in, say, District 1, I'm just picking a number, no longer is in District 1, next time, that person's gonna continue to serve until that place comes up for reelection, in which case, if that person who's incumbent, who's not termed out, doesn't reside in that district, they won't be able to run for that district.
So let's say what happens,
But
happens if the incumbent loses and, I guess they're no longer, and they're in, let's just say in District 1. Use that
They
example.
lose in the May election, this
Right.
May election.
Right, and the,
And then next year, they decide they want to run in the district in which they reside.
And I think is
But
it
one
your
wouldn't be
question
up
that
for-
the winner doesn't reside in the new district, reside in the old District 1 or whatever, doesn't reside in the new District 1?
yeah,
Come up.
3 years later.
3 years later.
well, so what-
So it almost sounds like we kind of need to know where candidates are at too.
so I got a
I
great,
think that, you know, that candidate knows what seats to run.
okay, so right now, we're only 9 days away from knowing the candidates, correct? So we're 9 days, so by the time we next meet, we'll be able to put dots of candidates on there, so we just draw the map to
Let me
include.
clarify, make sure Bob agrees. So if someone runs for District 1, gets elected, that seat doesn't come up until 3 years. In 3 years, that district the district is different, so that incumbent who's elected in May doesn't reside in that district. That person would not be eligible to run for that seat. So, just because we change the districts for the next election cycle doesn't render somebody who gets elected this May ineligible to continue to hold that office.
And I think that, you know, while you can certainly look at that, and I don't know how many candidates are going to be and so forth, but that may be impractical to draw something so that every candidate in the old district is in the new district.
It's possible.
Well, I mean, and that brings up the other one is it kind of sounds like we need to more or less keep the numbers where they are because each election cycle, 1 and 4 are up. If we start flipping the numbers, now all of a sudden we really screw up. So if we try to make 5, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 5, all those incumbents are no longer in there.
No, but I think once we start drilling this down, I personally think that we can draw a map that includes the incumbents where they are and
Yeah.
probably includes where the candidates are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nancy.
I think we need to keep that in mind.
Okay, Nancy, go ahead.
I think if I understand correctly, and I'm only an alternate, so I don't have a vote here, but that our task is to balance the districts, not so much to protect, and speaking as a previous city council member, to protect a council seat. we're to meet the numbers that are required per districts. And then everything else just kind of falls where it falls.
Until you saw what the charter said in the resolution they passed, we have to protect the incumbents.
Okay, all right.
I thought we didn't have to, and I asked that specific question, and I was corrected that based on what our charter says and the resolution that they wrote, we have to protect the incumbents. It was item not, I got it right here.
That's okay.
I don't know that
Copy
it's,
of that as
Yeah, I don't
well.
think the charter should
I
say
said,
have to.
no, I think it says you want to, you would try to do it, but you don't, it's not mandatory.
Section
I
one.
think
I
that's,
said you had to.
Okay, just a second.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I'm.
Oh, so, resolution 2021-166, section 1A8 mentioned protecting the incumbents. That's what the resolution that our 5 council unanimously passed. So, and that was written, Pete, if I'm not mistaken, based on what our charter says.
I have to go back and look at the charter, based on the charter, but that was based on the advice that Bob had given the council as far as the content.
that's a standard, and I'd have to go back and look at it, but that's one of the things that you look at in all of those criteria. You know, you may not be able to satisfy every criteria.
It's just one of the criteria is
Right.
you don't want to draw, so you can eliminate your political opponent.
Right.
But your primary purpose is not just to protect the incumbents.
Yeah.
Your job is to make sure we've got the districts within the deviation limits.
Yeah. And basically, one of the reasons for that sort of requirement is so that the council, you know, while obviously that's beneficial to the incumbents, but it's also beneficial to the constituents because it doesn't have the council or the people that ultimately decide what the districts are, decide this person's not gonna be able to continue to serve. It's voters' choice.
Did that answer your question?
You answered my question.
So I kind of feel like we have a, like 90% need to do that, 10%. That's kind of my take on it.
I think anybody that's taking the time to run and serve,
Should be able
both should deserve our efforts and to work as hard as possible to make sure that we don't take them out of a district where they're either an incumbent or they're running.
Right.
And we should work as best we can to preserve that and respect them for their time and their efforts.
So by next meeting, we'll be able to put dots on there that mention district candidates. Correct?
Yep.
We'll have that information from Amy on the 18th. It'll say, she can give that to her and we can have district candidates. I think that'll help.
Because it'll just be a couple, so.
It's 2 weeks, isn't it?
February 18th is the last day to submit for candidacy.
Okay, right, but there's not a meeting on it.
When's our next meeting?
23rd.
No, it's the week after that, so only 9 days, we'll have that information for the next
Yeah,
meeting.
so I think that helps a whole lot.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm fine with that.
So if we save this,
We do, I have named this Plan 1.
just
Sure.
name it
Like,
test number 1. Yes.
So, is that one saved? If we want to do any other markings on this one, we can.
I think we just
Or
start
you want to
over.
stop and I can do maps and charts?
I wouldn't move for it.
Why wouldn't you vote for it?
I've got maybe, aside from sitting here like 35, no, maybe 50 hours into drawing maps. And so I really looked at neighborhoods and I really looked at keeping the areas of interest.
Give us your best map.
So what, I'm willing to give you some of it, but I don't want
Why
us.
are you not?
So because we're still in the very, very infancy learning phase of all this. All of us are not grasping it all. I'm not grasping it all. We're not all there. So as we learn and grasp this, it'll help us all just make the best decision. So
Can you pinpoint a specific area on here?
specific area, I believe that District 3 should be the only thing west of 35, period. That's just where I'm at. Okay, and District 1 really encompasses all the way down to Farmers Branch Lane, all the way to Josie Lane. Okay.
District what is?
District 1 does, which
Oh,
Oh, wait,
I don't
but
agree.
does that change the incumbent or no?
No, it doesn't
Okay.
change the incumbent. And so then
Yeah,
District
it would.
Two.
Yeah, absolutely it would. Crystal would be out of her district.
No, because,
No,
no,
he
because
said-
she, because just like the little leg that exists over there now, you just grab sundown, and you've got her,
Oh, I see.
Oh, so,
So
okay, so
just
you're gonna
between Whitechapel-
gerrymander that little area.
well, just kind of like we did with District Four and we did with District Five. I mean, come on, we picked up one street for five, and we picked up 2 streets or 3 streets for 4, so it kind of, you know, sometimes you have to do that, but it made sense in those areas to do that, so.
I don't know.
And what I did is it made District Two only be west of Webb Chapel, and it put the people that are in District Two that are east of Webb Chapel into District Five.
Just in 5.
No, that not in 5, that stayed in, no, that's Johnson Park, that's,
Oh, I thought that's what you were saying, that
Thought that's
one
what you
little
were saying,
green
too.
went to 5.
Five.
No?
Sorry, we saved this map, right?
We're talking about this right here.
So you're putting Branch Crossing in one,
This?
all the way down to Branch Crossing is District 1?
let's see, Branch Crossing's on what?
Branch Crossing's in 3.
And then all of Farmers Branch
No,
left?
but
So-
you're saying your District 1 would go all the way from
It-
Valwood all the way down to,
Farmers Branch Lane, all the way over to Austell, and then all the way up to Valley View Lane.
Okay, so we want to reconfigure 1 first?
Well, that was just, yeah, you want that, or you can configure 3 out there on the west side first.
Yeah, can we do 3 first?
so
I like the idea of 3, honestly,
do we
like, I
have,
like
do we
3.
have anybody signed up to vote or to run already? For
Well, we
District
don't-
1 on the west side?
Yes, we do. Oh, no, no, yeah, we do.
Yeah, I think so, on District 1 on the west side.
Yeah, we do. We have
Alright, so
someone
we have
probably that
somebody-
lives in the Brickyard. Maybe he lives in the Brickyard.
Yeah.
That's all three.
All right.
All 3, okay, that's, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I
That's what I heard.
already,
So that's 3.
Wait, is that what you were talking about, or taking the part of, okay, is that what you meant?
Correct.
Okay.
And then every
So Farmers Branch west of 35 and north and south of 635 was District 3.
Okay, hold on, just a little bit, clean up here. Get these wild lines if I don't catch
Yeah,
them.
those streets, and they have people attached to them too.
Okay, all right, now, next.
Okay, so then we took, District 1 did not extend any west of Josie except for the incumbent's cell block, or block.
Where's Josie?
Oh, you don't want it, okay.
It's right here. This is Josie, the curvy road right there?
Yeah.
Lives
So all
on
that
13415 Sun.
Okay, so you, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you want all of that to go
She was
into
on the west
one?
side.
Here, I'm
Drive
gonna
back to
walk.
Josie.
Is it okay if I walk there?
Yeah,
I'm coming up.
come on.
Please draw yours.
Okay, so,
No, you don't want to.
No, I see it.
here we go. So-
Okay, here we go.
So District 1 started at this corner,
Uh-huh.
continued down, but included her Stardust 1.
The 2 blocks she had before?
Yes, the 2 blocks she had before. Yeah, I could have a pointer, because you can't see what I'm saying.
No, to get some of those laser pointers.
Yeah, we'll bring some for next time.
That would be.
Except my kids will take them and they shine them in their eyes. and-
Just back to 2?
That would be easier. to
Okay,
get
so,
done.
so we need this block right here, it's gonna encompass these 2 areas, or these 2 areas to be in District 1, and then
That goes
this
back
one,
to 2?
nope, this one, where her house is, which is 13415, Sundown.
Okay.
Okay, one more. Perfect.
What about up here? We still all okay up
No,
here?
so District 1 is here now, all the way down, so let's go up.
Okay.
Your candidate is at 2001 Whittington Place.
You said go
Yeah,
back.
I know, Brickyard.
Yeah, Brickyard.
Yeah, I got it.
Is that a Brickyard or is that a house?
Whittington is Brickyard.
Brickyard.
Well, on the other side of their homes.
But that candidate's at Brickyard.
Okay,
I see.
next.
Okay, so we continue down this way,
Uh-huh, and that put that in 1?
this in 1,
Okay.
and then put,
That in 1?
that in 1, and put from here to here in 1. So basically 3 comes across at Historical Park.
Just right through
and
there.
captures,
Okay, so come straight down. This is all going to 1?
correct. And that's all
And
still, right?
This is going to 1. And you said
This
every,
right
all of this right here
Yeah,
too?
so, yeah, 1, 1.
Okay. except for her path.
Yeah,
To
so except
three.
for this piece that goes, because that's all one cell block anyway, or block anyway.
Okay,
Okay,
okay, everything I have highlighted to 1.
okay, so now scroll back out a little bit. Okay, so now let's go over to District 2.
Okay, hang on, let me put this in 1 real fast. You think faster than I can move my fingers. All right, hang on, 2 seconds to clean up, maybe give me just a second. The more
see the
lines I have
numbers
on the
real
map,
quick?
the more
Oh,
convoluted
sure.
it
Well, they're
is.
gonna be wasted. You gotta
Yeah.
finish the
There we
rest.
go.
You can't look at it
Okay.
really till you get further on.
All
Okay,
right,
so,
that's 1.
so come this way now.
Okay,
Drag it this
we're going
way.
east,
We're gonna go northeast.
northeast.
North,
Okay,
northeast.
give me just a second, all right.
So now take, District 2 will now encompass this area up here.
The whole box,
The whole box all the way down to Webb Chapel, all the way down to Valley View Lane.
this whole box here, right here.
That's correct.
Just like that.
Keep on going. All the way down.
Down.
Oh, you already, that's already.
Except those 2 blocks where the,
In this right here, Farmers Ranch Park. Right here.
Nobody lives there, she could leave it where
Yes.
it
No,
is.
park.
It's got people
Okay.
tagging. Remember how they do the privacy thing, and they kind of
Yeah,
pepper them around a
They
little
do
bit?
have people.
So they do, it's like if you click on a street, you think, oh, no one lives there. But no, the way they do that is they, just like they told us this privacy thing, they'll put people on the street to protect their privacy. So you can't click on it and say, oh, I know who lives there. So whenever I was having a problem, when I was drawing, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get to the numbers. Well, I had excluded Marsh Lane. There's a piece of Marsh Lane that's Farmers Branch, that the residents that back up to Tanglewood are in that little block, even though their house is on Tanglewood.
Oh.
So okay, so,
Okay, this whole section into 2.
okay, so keep on going down.
yeah, it is, yes.
This
Yeah.
is 2 now? Well,
Let
it's
me
all-
get, let me
it's
get
not
you,
green
let
now.
me get this piece in, and then we'll go south. Okay,
Okay,
coming down.
we gotta come down, and
That little projection goes to 5.
this
That's
little,
right there.
this little projection will go to 5 because it's very, very densely populated, and
Okay.
that one makes 2 go off the map.
Okay, hold on just a second, let me grab that. This area here to 5.
Correct.
Are you taking 5 all the way to 635?
No, because then that throws 3 off, that throws 4 off. So, but the line for 4 becomes Templeton Trail.
Okay, so you want this area here in 5?
In 5, well, there's a little, let me go get my little thing to look at.
Oh, you're showing us your cards?
I might be showing my hand. But I've got about
So
5.
that went from 80% Hispanic to 64,
For 1.
for 1. Mhm.
Okay. I want you to see my picture. Okay,
I can read your mind.
you can read my mind? Okay, so, here, let me just start drawing that. Just make that happen.
See what you
So
got.
there is a little bit of,
Oh, I see, you've got that one.
so they all became, so the deviation on my map was less than 1%. It was like 0.7%.
Crazy.
Okay, see, you've got this piece, you've got to pick that piece in.
And that
That's
goes,
1, that's in 1. That's
That
over
goes-
here. Hold on just a second.
Why would you be unhappy?
Because her entire district just,
what'd you say?
I'm still in there, so I'm good.
I was gonna say, you're right on line.
Still good. I'm her neighbor, so
Three.
I'm safe.
I got kicked out.
Oh, you did? Oh, no.
How'd you get bumped out?
See, like where those streets are, if you don't put those streets on the right side,
You're no longer.
the map won't get
Just
there.
kidding.
Can't come to the block party.
Oh, hang on.
Sorry about you.
It's nice knowing you.
This is, it's at Valley View, this is Valley View, oh, I'm sorry. Valley View down to.
Crawfish boil.
The.
Am I doing
Huh?
Who's having one of those?
Oh, Tracy. I live in her neighborhood, that's why.
He has it.
It's
We asked them last time, they said they wouldn't capture that.
What?
item 1.
Oh, no, his changed quite a bit.
Okay, all right, now,
Okay,
you've brought 3.
A little.
and so then you
3's
have,
got this whole bottom half.
3's got the whole bottom half.
Okay, this whole bottom half goes to 3.
Yes, oh, thank you so much.
Take this guy back out. Oh, you're good.
So the three is boxed up. Okay, now we're gonna go follow, we're gonna go find that. It looks like it's this right here.
It's this parcel right here. No.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, it's the one next door.
It's the one next to it.
Yeah, I went to her Netflix special, I'm totally new to her.
Yeah, that one.
You have that and.
That and
Yeah.
this one.
Anything more is gonna be.
I read special on Netflix, and I was like, I love you, and I was like, let me write down everyone I know that has courage. Oh my best friend, she's an interior.
Squared up.
What's
your boundary here?
Temperature control, you're on it.
I'm on it, okay, so that we're putting in mind.
So this one goes to the
Put your box, the chat, so I bring you follow. We got some more work to do somewhere because we're. Okay, so we've got the bottom part of the map. Looks good. Okay, let's go up.
But I think like the more
Let's see
good
what-
ones we have, then maybe we can do.
You just have that. Go back
Yeah,
up
that's
to your
what
communism. You just have one block for
Yeah,
her.
one block.
Okay, so she just gets that one block and then she does one.
Two. And then down here, you got,
There's your two.
so, two, right here, this block, there's two blocks here, I think,
And
or three blocks.
Right through here?
Yeah, right
That
there.
that the lawyers put together.
So the south side,
They drew. Yeah, I like that one.
I guess it's any difference really between the Plan A picture and the Plan B. They look like.
It was mostly in District One.
More up.
everything but,
You really wanna buy it?
Just where.
no, we just want to get this block right here.
Look at Kevin really
That's all
right now.
It's all gonna be, okay, and then get the one above it. One next to it.
Oh, on the other side?
No, not like a crossover now.
Christ United?
Yep, that means one other
We went there, my mom's Catholic, and my dad's Methodist, so we went to like Christ United one Sunday and Mary Immaculate one Sunday. I remember her.
I know Mary Immaculate first, my husband's a CUNC.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we grew up across the street from each other as far as churches.
Yep.
She's got
Exactly.
an amazing amount of patience.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now we're still off.
Yeah, she really
You
does.
got that, you're going
Yeah.
straight up.
In the
I mean,
historic
like, you've got the
area.
backside, right? Okay,
They
let's
will
take
not
it
be
north.
happy.
Yeah.
You go see the top.
She has
If they lose their
If they,
She,
are
she's
in one.
amazing.
or if they're in one.
She is.
Okay, what's going on?
Yeah, I don't think-
Then it'll
She's a
cost more
diagnostic
decision
for the high school.
Yeah.
It's Smith, and I think she has
So the
one
streets need
middle
to be-
school, but I don't know which one.
and we know
Oh, we've
She
got,
told me,
you can come
this
in
was
one,
a
you've
couple
got
months ago,
this
she
one.
told me one story.
That's
Yeah,
the
that's
one.
right. That's what you.
streets.
Like, it's different.
Am I crazy?
There's your
No,
cut.
Yeah.
we need to have-
Oh, wait, that's the one
have
with
one
six
district.
districts.
Oh,
White
thank you.
House.
Yeah.
It's a different
No,
world.
maybe it's just you have different populations.
Now, and like,
I
she's
like it.
Census, and she's working off the.
so
Yeah, I
much
was-
about
And yours are
Yeah, I'm
black and white,
working
so
off
I don't know if
census.
maybe your eyes work
Right.
now,
I'm
but it's just like
Yes.
the lines
Off of,
did not change, right? The lines
this
are
day
what's
and age,
currently
it's
there, they're just
refreshing.
You're right, I
Yes.
am, for sure.
of what they actually
Like,
use. And it took me a
Okay, so
long
we're
time.
still off slightly, I think it's these streets at the top, we're still in the other districts.
Those aren't gonna happen.
That's probably why you
If
do
you click on someone, they'll
No.
have it.
Colors
Okay.
change.
They'll have a
Yep.
population. in
That was
it.
the only thing that
Oh,
changed.
okay, well, let me grab them then, I'll
Which
put
I
them
did
in.
the mayor probably.
Let's
got
see.
together the shape.
Because the city was
Gonna
city limit
push down their throat.
are not exactly the same. lines.
Gotcha, that makes complete sense now.
Could be a little difference.
Oh, you're right.
I
There we
told
go.
you, all
Okay.
those streets had lines, see, these streets up here do. Okay, so,
Good googly
All
mook.
right, where am I?
Oh.
Oh, down here.
Yes.
Can
we talk about what's up there?
sure, keep on going. Let's talk. So what I did is I tried to really focus on just doing what logically felt right whenever I look at District 2 especially, being that I was an incumbent for District 2. and you start looking at the numbers for District 2, it made sense for District 2 to be on to the dividing line to be Webb Chapel, which really kind of put the pieces that were east of Webb Chapel with District 5, which is kind of those neighborhoods that were split by the golf course anyway. We were split by Brookhaven Club Drive, which is like like a neighborhood, our neighborhood party includes both sides. So like I said, it didn't change our neighborly outlook or whatnot. But what I did, and something's still not right because our deviation on District 4 is 2.39, and on my map, it's less than 1% on all of them. But I'm working from the census numbers, and they're working from the city limit numbers, which are slightly
But
different.
you have place lines, that's the difference. So in the software that he's using, it's loaded, it's put the census place file for Farmers Branch. And the census, they try really hard, but they don't always get it exactly right. The file that we use that cuts the city is actually from your GIS department. I mean, it's exact, down on the ground, exactly what you have today. So sometimes there's a little bit of difference. It's not a lot, it's not enough to swing a plan one way or the other, but sometimes there's a difference between those two boundaries, and that gives us a little bit different population total.
So my mean total was 7198, and theirs is 7154. So there's obviously
That's the difference in the lines.
difference in the map or whatnot. So that, I've got a couple different versions of that, but that's one of the ones that I felt like it really made sure that District 1 stayed in a Hispanic population, and it really made sure that 3 is gonna grow. Obviously, 3 is gonna grow. And if we have District 1 extend across 35 into District 3, what's gonna happen is the people that are gonna live out there are gonna be the ones that vote and be the ones that are active and be the ones that start, getting involved, and that's gonna sway that district's just look and makeup. And so that's why I tried to make sure that District 1 stayed District 1. And so that's just my take of it, obviously. And then what I did is I laid down where all the incumbents are and where all the candidates are. And the only one I struggle with is the one at the Brickyard. Like, we'd have to string a line out there. We'd have to put like a walkway out there just to catch his building.
No, you don't. I mean, it's a lot easier to do that than, I think, than making a string out there.
Right, but what happens is they said we can't break cell blocks, or what are they called? Census
blocks.
Census blocks. So I didn't do that, but when you start clicking on that census block out there, they're huge because it's all industrial. It's all the different warehouse buildings, and so there's no, when you start taking, for instance, I don't even know where we're at, when you start trying to find a way out there to grab, basically you're trying to grab this building right here.
No, I think
It's up a little bit more to the right.
It's gonna be.
Yeah, that's it.
So that's the census block that the Brickyard is in. So in order to get there, you have to take all that, like you can't break the
You don't have
census.
to take you don't have to take the whole census block.
Well, they said,
You take individual blocks, not the entire census, unless they're the same, one and the same.
They are generally one and the same.
you can't break the block, so, right?
I'm not trying to.
So that's just where, though, in looking at that, I'd like your feedback as to what you think looks good, what you think looks bad. When you start looking at the numbers, it passes all tests.
I really like it.
It passes the Hispanic, it passes voting age, it passes all, that's what you start looking at. It actually decreases the 1, but it decreases it's like an anomaly kind of decrease, because I know those neighborhoods are strong.
So I think we need to know where the candidates are gonna be from before we start planting flagpoles. I think right now you might have more candidates
Can
come
we
out.
place those in there from the ones you know?
So we know for sure we have one at the Brickyard. We have one at the Brickyard, which is where basically that number 3 is on the map, is where the Brickyard apartments are.
That's right.
Okay,
So let's see where the other ones come out so that we know that, because right now this just like mine, till we know where they are.
Right.
It's a little premature to get too deep into what do you like, what you don't like.
Right.
But at least we have a basis on why we did this to start a conversation, because again, these are just, you said, this is just.
I mean, why can't we say this is number 2? How is that speculation any different than the first one? So why can't we? No, I think I think yours is fine. I mean, to me, to speculate on where the candidates might be, we didn't have that conversation on map 1. We just saved it and said, okay, this is a plan, like,
But
this could be a plan too.
Here's an assumption that I'll make, and I already know, is that the people that are District 4 stayed relatively intact, and that means the people that are running for District 4 are already within District 4.
Sure.
We didn't make a giant change to District 4 to preclude or take anyone out of it.
Sure.
So that's why I made sure, right where the District 4 dot is basically where our candidate lives right now. And so all those neighborhoods and whatnot, to keep his district intact and his incumbent intact, that there's not a big change to make out there. But that's the second biggest population growth we're gonna see in the next 10 years, is the east side. Right now, it's the west side, because that's what's happening, but the developers that are buying Miss Billingsley, who's buying the property out there, and the departments that are coming, that's not gonna occur right now, but by the time this comes again, and we have to have another group of people do this, that's what's gonna be, we're talking about. It's not the west side, because it will be really populated by then. It will be the east side is where we're really gonna see the changes, so, go
I
ahead.
mean, I think it's a great second map.
One thing I noticed though, you've got the District 2 and the District 1 representatives that live within about 6 blocks of each other.
Right.
Well, that's already.
That's where they already live though.
That's
Well,
where
no, but yeah, I guess, I don't know, that bothered me for some reason.
Right, it's not like Mike, we didn't put them there, they're just there.
Well, I know,
Fair,
I know,
fair,
it's just-
but
Like, we have to worry about it now, but it might not. Like, who's running?
Well,
What
Crystal was
districts
living
are-
on B Street. That-
Crystal and, I'm sorry.
No, she has a house on, she bought a house
Yeah,
on
she's renting a house,
Stardust.
yeah.
Stardust.
Can you go south a little bit?
So in this map, I've got about 5 other instances where I take that basically Valley View and Josie intersection and all the way down to Farmers Branch Lane. You can kind of chop that up like 10 different ways. And you can include some neighborhoods in 3, some in 4, you can put them in different ways and get the same numbers. But,
Did you mess with this at all? Because you kind of chop up like Austell right here.
right, and so if you watch, let's just say we take that out of 1, watch what happens to 1. So take that area out of 1, and you can't give it to 5 because 5's our biggest district.
So my biggest concern out of this is you've diluted you've taken a ton of the strength of 1 away, and you know
Yeah.
historically, you're gonna get
Those
a
are
boatload
heavy
of
voters,
voting
yes.
from here and here and here, and you're gonna wipe out the value of 1 by doing it this way.
Then we raise that line to Valley View Lane. And now there's a lot of voters down there. We can raise that to Valley View Lane, but what then you get is you get that border at Josie
Yeah.
becomes, that's a natural boundary. Now it jumps over Josie and it goes all the way, and see where Michael's house is it takes over that whole block up to the library.
So I think, it's a good one to work with, and that we can tweak it. I still think we need to know at our next meeting where all the voters are, because, I think everybody kind of agrees that, candidates, sorry. Everybody agrees that anybody that's running should be given some deference or respect, and we may see 3 or 4 of them that, if there are that many, that create some issues.
Well,
So how,
what I see happening in District 1 now is that the people who run will dilute the Hispanic vote, and the people that, yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
So then we can
we've
bring
done a
that line
disservice to the
north.
Hispanic community.
Let's see,
I don't
let's see where they are before we tweak too many more,
So-
unless we want a whole bunch of maps till we.
What's the street you live on, Harrisburg?
No, that's my sister, but yeah, she
Okay,
lives
so
in
her
Harrisburg.
sister, the neighborhood that her sister lives in was the neighborhood in my thought process that is east of Tom Field and north of Farmers Branch Lane.
Yes.
That was like a target neighborhood that's very, very, if you put the dots on, I guarantee every house is 50% over there. I guarantee they all are. So that's when I thought.
From Epps Field to where?
No, she's
Tom
Tom
Fi-
Field.
Tom Field
Tom Field east over
East.
to the
To basic-
Marshall's Barbecue.
to, basically to Austell, or no, to,
Basically to, the Terra Place.
Terra Place Apartments, right? And then all the way up to, here, I'll come point at it. Sorry about that, I apologize. Okay, so this neighborhood, when I thought about bringing this down, it was only really because of this neighborhood right here. This neighborhood can really, it could be in 3, but what it does is it blows 3 up.
Well,
And
then
then you really make this intersection between all the districts like really kind of weird. So, but I get it, and I've done like 4 different other versions of it. So you're right, you can do that, but I didn't think that I mean, we can kind of guess or think, but I don't know that District 1 becomes less powerful because we include this area.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I would say,
Yeah.
I would say from that west of Tomfield, I think it would.
Wait,
I-
why? I don't understand how it would not be, like,
Because
what's the
people who-
power?
Because the people who live on, like, where Teresa lives, like, there's a lot of Hispanic people, but they're not voter, like, they don't vote. But on Branch Crossing, like, on the other side of Tomfield, they have a high
They're newer
voter
houses.
percentage, newer
Right.
house, or the Branch Crossing that's been developed.
So maybe put this area right here into District 3.
When you say that they
Right?
Okay, so let's get the candidates
Oh.
and
Oh, yeah.
and be able to factor those in.
That's really a good
you
idea.
take into consideration that they're.
So we're looking at this area here into 3?
No, they're eligible, like, there's most of those people
just
that are,
don't.
Now,
they
did
just
you save
don't.
the last one? Well, we
Well,
won't say the
'cause I
last one
only
until we get
Oh, you
candidates.
mean
with
say
that.
that?
I know a lot of
Yeah.
people
So
that
save
live in
that
that
one.
little
Yeah.
area,
Let's say-
and
say
then,
that-
you know, knocks on their door, and they'll vote. Like, if
Over
you
there, like
reach-
Teresa's, but like by Limeville and Holbrook and Mount View.
Can I ask the lawyers some questions? Because I read the case, the Farmers Branch case, and quite a few other cases about redistricting. And so there's a couple things that I want to just make sure I'm clear about. So, for instance, I read several of the cases to be that what matters is the eligibility of the voters,
Right.
not whether they vote or don't vote.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, well, under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act,
Mhm.
there is a 3-part threshold test to see if the plaintiffs can get into court or stay in court, essentially. And in the first Farmers Branch case, they weren't able to meet that. That was before the 2010 census. Then you had another case after the 2010 census, and they were. Now, that measure is by, as you say, potentially eligible voters, which is basically citizen voting age population. And they were able to show you could draw a district with 50% citizen voting age population. If you do that, then you've got to show a few other things, and if they can show those. So, yeah, we're looking at citizen voting age population. I think, too, that as you are, of course, y'all are the policy people, you're making the decision, not me. But I think there's something to be said for looking and saying, is this district, we're drawing a Hispanic district, we're going out of our way to draw it because we want to comply with the Voting Rights Act and so forth, but you probably want it to be potentially effective, that it will work. You don't want to draw one that, may look to be a majority, but it's never going to elect. For example, in Irving, this is part of the problem when you talk about whether it's 2 or 1, so forth. In the school district, the plaintiffs in that said you've got to draw 2. I thought you could barely draw 1, and they had not been able to draw one that was effective. Of course, yeah, you can draw 2, you have to draw 2. Drew 2, didn't elect anybody, either one. Same way the city of Dallas, that they added additional Hispanic districts back 10 years ago. And at least in the first election, it ended up reducing Hispanic population from where it was. Now, I think over time, that may have changed. So, I think it's reasonable to look to see if this likely to work. And one of the things I would want to do on this plan, or any of them, but where you have a lower percentage of Hispanics than you had before, Hispanic voting age population, is to look at the CVAP number, CVAP citizen voting age population, and sort of see where those are. Because it may be that it's one of those, I think it's 57%, trying to look and see.
Bob, I thought you said that census didn't do citizen voting age.
No, we have to look at ACS, American Community Survey, that's not in the census. And those numbers are not as precise as the census. They're sample data, There's a margin of error, so forth, but that's the best data that we
So,
have.
but we don't have that. None
Well,
of this,
we can go back and get that on the 5-year data, which ends in 2019. They're coming out with the 2020,
March 17th.
in when?
March 17th.
March 17th. But right now, we look at the 2015 to 2019. After March, they'll have 2016 to 2020.
so can you, when that information comes out, can you put another column that has CVAP and either eliminate VAP or total population, whichever one is least? Or can you add it and so we see all of them?
This database is purely restricted to just census fields, and this is ACS data, so I can't pull it in on the matrix, but we carry it out to the side. There are two different kinds of data.
Amy, can we just get a whole other screen so we can have two
Is that a problem?
You know, and the other thing, and Sherry can talk about what we can do on this, but the ACS data is reported at the census block group, which is a group of blocks, not a single block. We're working here with single blocks, so then she disaggregates it down to single blocks. So we're estimating what the population is in each block, but they all add up to what the block group is. So, you know, that's the best we can do. But, you know, we'll look at that, and if the 57% Hispanic VAP comes out 48% or something CVAP, might say, well, you know, is that really strong enough? But, you know, would have to look at it, and I don't know what that's going to do.
So we're in March, we're gonna introduce a whole nother set of variables that really could change everything we're doing.
Now, you know, because you know, we can look at the 2019 data, through 2019.
Okay.
What you're doing is you're changing 20% of your sample. So it's a 5-year sample.
Okay.
You drop the oldest year and the newest year. And they
Can-
are late in doing that at this time because the census was late, the pandemic, all that sort of stuff.
So this software is great to manipulate these numbers, but if we move blocks around, how are you gonna do ACS to be able to make the ACS CVAP numbers correlate to our changes?
I export a file out of your plan. It's called a block assignment file. And it's a flat file that has the GeoID for the block and the district designation. And then I take the ACS file, which has already had the GeoID for 2020 appended to it. I join them together. I aggregate it by district and summarize all the fields.
So this repopulates and recalculates instantaneously. When we do that, how long will it take you to recalculate the numbers for CVAP using the ACS?
Yeah, it usually, I can usually go back and get it. Once I have a set plan and I can export out the text file from it, it usually takes me a day, not a full day, but a couple hours to work the numbers back through.
So again, we're gonna be kind of, I don't wanna say working in the dark, but we're working with partial data, so we may end up looking at a bunch of data and looking at maps on next meeting, and then the next meeting we'll come back and compare them, and CVAP may say we need to massage them more.
Yeah.
In order to, just to make sure that we keep the percentages high enough that we protect at least one district.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can see, you know, as you go through, you look at VAP and you get a pretty good idea. And then later, after you have a plan or proposed plans, you can go back and look and see where does the CVAP come out. But it's, you know, really when you're drawing, you're looking more at these numbers. You've got to look first at these numbers. And then looking back to what's your Hispanic percentage. But, you know, 68%, you figure that's likely to be a Hispanic district. 57, maybe not.
So that's where we run the risk of potential lawsuits if we don't do a good enough job of at least protecting one of the districts.
You don't want to end up with something, so you're trying to get two and you get nothing.
So And you'll
Right.
know after you do a couple of these and you run the CVAP analysis, you'll see a pattern. I mean, you'll see CVAP maybe dropped at 5% or 6%. You kind of know every time you draw something, it's gonna drop in that similar range.
I'm concerned with CVAC with numbers at 57, that we run a risk that we lose District 1 of
Yeah.
what we have, the way we have it set up now.
Yeah.
And then 68 may be enough, but
Probably not.
it sounds like it's getting close.
Can I ask just for giggles, you know how you had the dots earlier, can you just push a button? Is there a way to just push a button, make those dots show up, just so we can kind of like visually,
Get
so
someone
I
to
can
hit
visually see?
Hispanic
dots or-
of 50%.
Yeah, Hispanic
Yeah.
dots.
I feel like there needs to be a better term than
Right.
Hispanic dots. Hispanic dots, please.
Or just a better term than dots, can you show me the dots, please?
Yeah, there we go, just the dots.
Actually, I don't want that kind of.
But you're referring to the Hispanic ones or the
The
general?
Hispanic one.
Okay. No, because I was not clear which one.
I mean, I wasn't either, to be quite clear about that.
We need
I'm
to
like,
do
can
that.
I just get some dots, please?
Just any dot.
Any dots, even the candy ones at this point.
I love candy.
I see, like, if you're gonna be
Those are
bringing
my favorite
those,
ones.
we need to
Where
know
is
for
the
all-
shade?
Yeah.
These came from the city manager.
I was like, where did we get?
Wow, city manager needs to
I see that they're
share.
all on that side though.
Well, I brought them up here.
Oh, no, they're all on that side.
I brought them up here from
Thanks for
downstairs. Sharing is caring. You have a pack in your hand.
Thank you.
Let alternates, you deserve love.
Oh,
You ate
that's,
them all.
that is,
I will totally eat these.
I have like this Sam's bucket of those under my desk at work. It's like, I just need like a couple.
Oh, hang on, that's my bad. I'm over here. Hold on just a second. We have to turn the blocks on in order to see them. I was giving you a clean map and I goofed. I goofed
hairy
up.
ones?
Let me back out. Okay, here we go. Let's try this again.
I don't like them, only when I was pregnant.
There are lots of options on this.
Too many options, Bob.
I know.
yeah, I know. Not enough solutions.
Thinking that 10 years ago, you didn't have the computer power that you do now.
Oh, man. Let's not think like that.
I wish they would have like,
Powerful 10 years ago, but this is more, so.
I feel like maybe people didn't do as good a job with the census. because
First
it was, like,
redistricting
right
I
in the
did,
middle of the
we
pandemic,
didn't have
they don't wanna answer the door to random people knocking
We're
on
on
the
our
door or
hands
whatever,
and
but
knees on the floor,
we should
and the
like
maps
push it
are
off
so
a year
big.
or something, so we'd have better data.
Thank you. I mean, I think at the end of this, we need to like get you a gift card or something, buy you a drink or
Oh,
something.
yeah, great. Sherry, will you
Really?
be able to do that same thing with the CVAP, ACS numbers?
So what I'll try to do is, I'll make, so once we get a CVAP layer for the city, I will make a file that I can bring in and do some kind of rudimentary shading for 50%. And we can just overlay it on top like we do the neighborhoods, like you saw the neighborhoods kind of come up with that. I'll try to make something like that to do it. Again, everything that you kind of see on the map, the circles, the matrix, all driven by the redistricting database. And the ACS data is a whole nother animal. So they don't play well with each other.
But is it like a huge difference? I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Is there like a huge difference on the two? Oh,
There'll be
Oh.
fewer.
There'll be
circles.
fewer of them. So what you'll see, like for instance, you'll see all the circles on here, and then if I bring in a layer that says 50% CVAP, a lot of these will not shade.
and we'd have to change it because of that?
Not necessarily.
Can I ask you a favor? See that little, this little piece right here? If that piece went, this piece right there.
Here, you need my
went to
pencil?
4,
This little piece here,
right there, yes.
Oh, on my map it did, so I'm sorry I didn't pick that
That's
up.
160, that's about 160 votes.
Yeah,
okay.
so, I mean, I think I guess 4 and 5 more balanced.
To help for right now.
It would, yeah, now, but.
Yeah, that's the one thing we're missing, because I'm looking at mine, and that was, Michael Baumgartner's old house is now in Terry's neighborhood, Terry's district.
Is that where he lived in that little neighborhood behind Brookhaven?
Oh, Woodhaven, yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah,
that's where Baumgartner did, yeah.
Is that bring us closer?
Yeah, that's, so look at the deviation. Well, we're still off somewhere. It was below 1, but now I'm looking at some of my other maps I saved, and now that it was brought up that we probably should raise that, exclude that Tom Field area into District 3, that makes sense, but it throws off the map radically. It really throws it off. So I think that's where we could start fresh next time and start working there. Yes, ma'am.
This last change that I just made between 4 and 5, is it okay? We're gonna say that, that's still gonna be Plan 2?
Yeah, that's fine. It was supposed to be that way. I didn't see
Okay.
that earlier.
All right, let's do that then.
Can we get copies of the maps saved during this meeting?
Like PDF
Emailed
of
out
these?
to us?
We can get them copies of the map.
Oh, yeah, when I export out those files, that's to make you maps and charts for your paper, for your reference.
So like
So,
after
yeah,
this-
everything we draw in here, we'll produce it tomorrow, you'll get it probably Friday, but we'll get you all the.
Yeah, my map's all messed up now.
Need 'em tonight.
What happens is
Because
when I
by
take
the time
the
you
information
have
out,
the
Amy
initial
gets
assessment, if
Shelley,
you
and then-
turn
put it
it
in
back, there
District
is a
3, it
Hispanic
makes District 3 high.
Yeah.
Just
The
throws
one
the
that's
numbers
red
off. Makes District 2 low.
should be
Because
right
I
at
think
the
it's our
very
next
Kelly,
one.
Kelly, I'm with you. I think that helps.
Yeah.
In the, that information.
So
Go back
that
to
could
your
be,
own.
right,
That one.
a good one to look at to get an idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
good. Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, we got 1 and 2.
Can we get these tonight?
Ah,
On our way home, can we get?
Take your cell phone and.
I'm just kidding.
do we have any other questions or comments? I feel like we're wrapping up our evening. Mr. Bob's got a long drive home.
Well, he's expensive, so maximize your use of him tonight.
Wow.
Well, then let's start a new map.
But you might, if you're getting close to breaking, you might want to recap where you are, find out if there's any questions. from the
Okay,
group.
let's do a recap. I'm getting coached over here by Great Pete, so let me pick up the slack.
I
So
like
we,
to go home, but I don't mind the billable hours.
oh, I know you don't.
I'm just kidding, that's just a joke.
Okay, so we saved our first effort, we saved a second effort, and we will obviously continue on our efforts moving forward, but they'll send us or export these so we can see what we've done, and by the next meeting, we will have candidate information about where the candidates running for districts 1 and 4 live. We know where the district and candidate, in district for we know where candidate lives in District 1, the Brickyard, but we don't have anyone that's turned in, I don't believe yet, for District 4, correct?
1, and it's Ridge Oak Way.
Okay, Ridge Oak Way, so that's deep, deep, deep into the existing 4 already.
Yeah.
Okay? That's actually east of Marsh and south of Valley View Lane. That's like deeper than Terry is already.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's already in Ridge Oak Way. So depending on if we have any other candidates, that one would already pass muster, but we would have to figure out how to hook up that that apartment building out there at number 1 to District 1. In order to honor our 90-10 commitment to our candidates, 90% committed. So, or any other questions or any other comments? Did I forget anything? Did anyone feel like let's air some grievances. If anyone didn't get to talk enough, let's hear it now so I can make sure you talk first and only next time.
You are so good.
Only.
Okay. Anyone else? They need to say anything or,
This was good.
it's gonna continue to get better and better and better until we're gonna all love the final map. That's all we have to do. This is one thing we have to do until June.
Is booze allowed?
Thank you,
So,
thank you, Shelley.
Yes, thank you,
thank
Shelley.
you, Amy, and thank you,
Yeah, thanks,
Pete.
Amy.
Thank y'all.
Thank you to the audience members and our alternates as well. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We adjourned at 8:24 PM.